to identify yourself, please?
Yes, Donald P. Broughton, 502 West River Road. Take a seat.
Sure, by all means.
It's not like a podium. My name's Donald Broughton. I live at 502 West River Road. Lived in Hooksett for the past 3 years. I've been employed as a police officer with the town of Hooksett. For the past 15 months, I've also served as a union steward that represents the officers and dispatchers of the department. First, I'd like to thank the Police Commission for all their efforts to date. Since the sitting of this commission in July of 2010, there's been a determined and focused effort by the commission in the operation of the department. The scrutiny by you have been helpful to and essential in considering the issues of the day-to-day management of this department. While we appreciate with the increased oversight, we have a question. Where is it all going? The past several years and beyond, the Hooksett Police Department has suffered a brutal attrition of valuable and well-trained certified personnel. Its reasoning and explanation has been claimed to be normal, people simply leaving for more money, better career, or leaving law enforcement altogether. It's also been said that this mass exodus of officers has been the machinations of bad and disgruntled bad apple officers, citizens groups with agendas, or manipulation of the media. As union steward, I've also seen a significant decrease in training of officers and staff, which is crucial and vital to maintenance of perishable skills. When I first came to Hooksett, I was extremely impressed with the amount of training and professionalism and enthusiasm the training cadre had here. Having come from a larger department, I experienced a level of training here that far surpassed anything I've seen in a long while. Much of the recent training decreases have been explained as due to decreased budget imposed on the police department by the town. However, questionable expenditures have been brought to light by the commission and citizens groups over the past year, naming questions. Since I've become a union steward, my goal has been to create the foundations for a professional and efficient organization that can compete with other agencies for qualified recruits via a diverse career path with equitable salaries. In addition, I hope to further establish a system of checks and balances that is fair and equitable to both labor and management, and fair and impartial as regards the aspects of discipline and internal investigations. This is taken in many ways from my own experience as a police officer for 15 years. It is my hope that by implementing such a well-structured system, we can prevent some of the unpleasantness in this realm of service that the police department has come to light publicly over the past year or more. I have no doubt the police commission is rightfully trying to improve the agency's operation efficiencies. However, it is time to conduct a thorough top-to-bottom review of how the department operates. Police Academy that I attended in Florida used to teach a very simple philosophy. Incidents are symptoms of problems. If you want to stop the incidents, you need to solve the problems. Respectfully, we are looking and requesting a fair and impartial review that will either condemn or exonerate those aspects of the operation and management of this and allow this department to move forward in a positive manner. The betterment of the town and the citizens we serve. Failure to do this comprehensive and independent review will continue to cause a further erosion of morale and departure of qualified and valued personnel. Should this erosion continue, result in an ongoing exodus of employees, it can come to a point where we'll just become the advanced training depot for the New Hampshire Police Academy. This has also caused surrounding towns in this area to reap a bountiful harvest of excellent certified officers trained by our police department. And they've let this department continue in rewarding fulfilling careers elsewhere. It's time to keep them here. Hooksett is a great and vibrant community, which one will continue to grow as a diverse place to live and work, even despite the economic conditions. Having worked in a place of rapid growth, I can tell you that the scrutiny will become greater and not less, as people will expect more from the department and will not settle for simple excuses. Commission's focus on scrutiny. Let us give us the quality of police department that the citizens deserve and can be proud of. Thank you on behalf of the employees of the department.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hello. Ashley Forster, 1465 Exit Road, number 1316. I have grown up in the town of Hooksett, attending Hooksett schools from first grade at Underhill School all the way through 8th grade at the old Hooksett Memorial School. I remain in contact with several of my old Hooksett teachers as I now have become an educator in another local district. The relationships I've established with my former teachers have helped me to become an effective educator and member of society. The education I received in Hooksett is invaluable, and I'm so thankful that the school system has retained their high expectations of academic excellence. It is these relationships that are developed between students and teachers, as well as members of administration, that children remember and cherish for many years. The students of Hooksett today are still developing these relationships that will impact their future. I know one relationship that stands out for many, that most students and parents alike will have a hard time forgetting. This is a relationship they developed with their school resource officer, SRO Jay DePina. My brother, SRO Jay DePina, was the school resource officer in Hooksett for the 2008-2009 school year. Even though he has been out of his SRO position for a significant length of time, he is still noticed and approached almost on a daily basis within the town of Hooksett and its surrounding towns. SRO DeFina has built a relationship with the students of Hooksett and made a positive impact on their outlook of law enforcement, evident by the approachability and eagerness for conversation that I have witnessed him encounter with numerous students of Hooksett, both past and present. No other member of the Hooksett Police Department has developed meaningful relationships with those of Hooksett that I have seen with my brother, which is evidence that he cares about and will fight for the town of Hooksett. This is something the citizens of Hooksett are seeking, something they need. They need someone who cares, and it couldn't be more obvious that Jay does. 55 shifts, roughly 480 hours. This is the amount of time that my brother has been back to work since his reinstatement on September 28, 2010. This is the amount of time that Officer DeFina has been back on patrol, and this is the amount of time that has gone by with no change. The Hooksett Police Department command staff, the same command staff that stripped my brother of his career 504 days ago, is still in place, and no measures have been taken to investigate the events leading up to and including his termination. It baffles me that after the extremely controversial and publicized event of my brother being wrongfully terminated, that upon his reinstatement, no safeguards or measures were taken to protect his rights and safety upon returning to the same building and the same authority that caused him such anguish and pain. I have seen firsthand the effects of this corrupt Hooksett Police Department and the effects that this corrupt Hooksett Police Department has had on my brother's health, both physically and mentally. He amazes me every day with his perseverance and inner strength, because I cannot personally imagine going through the things that he has had to endure. To devote your life to your career, to invest everything you have at the cost of your health and well-being, only to have it stripped out from under you, and watching as those responsible have no consequences. The intentional targeting and implicit lies that Mr. Stephen Grafiotis has not had to answer for is embarrassing. It is embarrassing for the town of Hooksett and those in positions of authority within the town. He is one man, and he has committed corrupt acts that need to be accounted for. The fact that he remains in his position as the Hooksett Police Chief and has not had to answer for his transgressions is a disgrace to the citizens of Hooksett who support his position financially as taxpayers, and to the employees of the Hooksett Police Department who are being denied a leader of integrity and a safe working environment. It has been said publicly by previous patrolmen of the Hooksett Police Department that this happened to Jay, but it could have happened to anyone. Who will be next? As long as Mr. Grafiotis has a badge and a desk in the Hooksett Police Department, his reign of corruption is not over. My brother will continue to fight to bring this man to justice. As much as I've seen Jay go through, and as amazed as I am that he is still in the fight for truth, I have not a shadow of a doubt that my brother, Officer DeVina, will stand strong against the corruption and injustice that he has seen and experienced, and he will see to the very end of this long and excruciating battle for exposure of Mr. Stephen Grafiotis' lies and deceit. How long will Mr. Stephen Grafiotis remain in a position of authority in Hooksett before someone, anyone, steps up to their moral obligation to investigate his corruption and find the truth hidden behind his lies? I will leave you with this quote by Edmund Burke. All that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. What will you do? Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak here this evening?
Good evening, Mark Gable, 42 Main Street. There is a perception that has wrongly been adopted by some town officials that actually is a news media that perpetuates the negativity of town government and events and decisions that occur. That by somehow the mere reporting of newsworthy stories generates more bad news. so that the news media should not be broadcasting or promulgating adverse controversies to the entitled citizenry to know. However, if events, statements, and decisions were not generated to create such bad news, the news media would not need to report them. I want to highlight a recent instance of such news-generating story, dated January 13th in the Banner. There was a legitimate news story written that informed the citizenry about the increase in burglaries and domestic violence in town, discussed right here in the Police Commission meetings. Burglaries have multiplied since last year from previous years, a total of 85 burglaries in all. Chief Graciotis offered his own perspective of this growth in crime into this news article. Despite his personal feelings that newspapers contribute to the problem by writing about it publicly, he chose to add to the hype with his own comments therein. Although his efforts to explain away the reasons for the increase in crime, he fails to take any personal responsibility for this rise in crime on his watch as the lead law enforcement officer in town. Everything that occurs that involves police matters is ultimately the responsibility of the police chief. In a paramilitary organization, which this claims to be, the buck stops at the police chief's commanding officer's desk. So what did the chief say as a contribution to the article on the rise in crime as it comes across his desk? He states, "We don't know exactly why that is. My best analysis would be the economy. It also would be that Hooksett is a growing community." The Banner quotes the chief as saying that he also pointed to an officer staffing shortage as a reason why there are more break-ins this year. Graciotis partially blamed, again, the media for covering the issue. The chief also states, "I think some of the discussion was had publicly about staffing levels was counterproductive to our ability to police the town. I view this as nonsense." He also stated in that article, "We decided that the neighborhood watch was the way to go for us. In fact, it was actually the citizens that initially requested to start up the neighborhood watches, and the chief acquiesced to the citizens. The chief actually originally wanted to have Crime Line instead of the watches, but that fell through. It was actually this commission that also requested the neighborhood watches, and personally, the chairman of this commission. If I feel personally that the chairman not advanced that, it may not have occurred. But it certainly was not the police department or the police chief who advanced it initially, it was the citizens. Why then is everything bad that happens in town is the fault of everyone else and not the chief's problem or responsibility? When can we get some accountability from our chief law enforcement officer in town? It's not the newspaper's fault or the citizens' fault, or the responsibility of the newspaper or the citizens to resolve the problems in town that occur. The newspapers just report them. Thank you. Oh, if I still have more time?
Minute and 10 seconds.
Thank you. Also, let me just get these both in at the same time. In October, I submitted a right-to-know request to the commission, dated initially on 10/4, and then again, once again, when the right-to-know was not submitted back to me with all of my answers, I resubmitted it on October 19th, and I'll give you a copy of that. Specifically, what I want to know, which I still haven't received a response for, which I had not publicly stated out loud, was during the course of Officer DeFina's case, there was a non-public meeting on August 18th of 2009, which apparently the non-public minutes were apparently unsealed or apparently released to both parties in that hearing. And yet I cannot find any indication, based on my right-to-know request, of the exact date to which the commission voted on and to approve, to unseal and distribute the 8/18/09 non-public meeting minutes to the PELRB in the HPD binder as relevant to Officer DeFina's hearing. So specifically, I want to know, on what date, therefore, was the release of those meeting minutes released to the HPD attorneys and subsequently to the PELRB? At what public meeting did that release occur? Thank you. And if I may approach, I'll submit these again.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Anybody else wishing to speak here this evening? All
Hi, J.R. Willett, 3 Summerfair Street. Can you tell me if there was an investigation that has been conducted on the accusations made by Councilor Booton at the Town Council's meeting on September 9, 2009, about the chief stating he would hang Hooks' Laundry out if he went forward with a bill to increase the police commission? Has there been an investigation done on that?
You're asking me something I don't know anything about.
That was in September
Of 2009.
2009.
Right, you were on board and...
Yeah, but I don't have any knowledge about that. I think,
May I approach?
sure. Is that a letter or a request?
It's a complaint. This is a formal complaint relating to this accusation. The chief is the highest ranking officer in our community. If he states this intimidating remarks to a state representative, it should be investigated. We cannot allow accusations like this to continue on without being investigated. The prior commission should have investigated this accusation before when it became public. As a very concerned tax-paying citizen of this community, I'm asking this commission to investigate this complaint along with all the other complaints that have been submitted to this commission. Our town needs protection, and if this commission doesn't have the time or the ability to investigate these complaints and all the other prior complaints that were submitted, please forward them to the Attorney General's office for their review, or order a detailed investigation to be done on this entire department. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak this evening?
David Pearl, 79 Main Street. Mr. Grafiotis, I've asked you a number of times if you had a plan that you could share with the public to improve the situation in the police department. I would ask you that again. Excuse me?
Answer, taken.
I'm telling you, the chair, that this isn't in a position.
I know, I'm just saying, I guess if you do not wish to respond, just
I
stop.
do not wish to respond to
Okay. I have a couple of suggestions for you. I don't see how we're really going to move forward until you take a few steps. I think you need to apologize to Officer Lupina for not providing the due process. That's been proven in this commission.
Can we stop right there? I think we have been over this a number of times with regard to the fact about an issue that is a litigation issue, that we cannot go there. So for us to even entertain that conversation, for you to ask them that, I really think it's really crossing the lines. And I would wish that you would refrain from having that conversation, because as I said, it's an issue that is in litigation, and if we even have any discussion about it, it really isn't appropriate. So I would ask you to please refrain and please understand the fact that we can't have a conversation there.
Thank you. If you find something else that's objectionable, please interrupt me. I would also suggest that you apologize for Officer Davina for calling him a liar in the newspaper.
Again, please.
That's not under litigation.
I know that's not under litigation, but I guess, can I say this, Mr. Pearl, okay? I think I've said this a couple of times, that comment has been made before, and I can certainly appreciate your wanting to have either a resolution or an answer to it, but I think, given the fact that the chief has said that he is not going to respond, and that you're not going to get a response from him, that there's no point in going there. And I would ask you to not ask that question.
Well, out of respect for the chair, I will abide by that. And I apologize because I'm a bit unprepared, but in reading the policy,
Reading the what? I'm sorry.
Policies of the department.
Okay, yes.
And I apologize because I don't have the article in front of me. It's my understanding that the chief is the public relations officer for this department. He is supposed to interact with the public, and he is supposed to answer our questions. My asking the question of whether he has a plan that he can share with the public to improve the situation in the police department has nothing to do with litigation, has nothing to do with...
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I said that he was not willing to respond to your question. That was on that
Right.
issue. The other issue had to do with the litigation, and as I said to you, because of the litigation, we can't entertain that discussion. Then you went on to the other, and I spoke to you about that. So I just want to be clear.
I understand the difference. I guess I am commenting on his lack of response. And I am basically saying, in my opinion, he is not doing his job, which is to interact with the public. And I can understand if he doesn't want to discuss issues that are under litigation, but I'm just making the point that a plan for improvement, me asking him for a plan for improvement, doesn't fall under that at all. That is something that's very general, that he could comment on. I've asked him to comment on it a few times, and he refuses to answer any of my questions. And I just find that he is not serving the public, and he's not doing his job correctly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Why isn't when a member of the public wants to ask the chief a question about operations or about the department, having nothing to do with any current litigation, why isn't it,
He refuses to answer. I don't know what you want me to do.
well...
I just
you could-
stated a fact that he's unwilling to answer the question, so we have to leave it there. We're not going to debate the issue all night.
I understand that, but, Chief, when it comes to answering the public's questions about various things, I mean, you just said it's not an inquisition, I understand that, but if the public has concerns about certain things, why is it that you would not answer the public's questions? If they had questions about burglaries, about crime stats, about these sort of things, why wasn't it you wouldn't answer something like that that has nothing to do with anybody in particular, except you answering the question coming from the public about what's happening with the police department?
I'll tell you, because number one, I don't agree with his assumption of the problems that he believes exist. And number two, plans to deal with issues within the department handled by the command staff, and I'm not going to publicly discuss staffing and other personnel issues.
Right, but if you disagree with somebody in public, they're entitled to their view, and that's why they would come and ask questions. And you obviously, if you disagree with that, why not give them the explanation as to what your disagreement is? If they're incorrect in their assumptions, why not tell them, no, it's because X, Y, and Z? I understand the fragility of not giving away plans on how we fight crime. I understand that. But when the public comes forward and asks a question, and I understand a lot of times it's accusatory in nature and probably shouldn't be, I would take a defensive stand if it was as well, but if it's an inquiry, I see no reason why you wouldn't answer certain questions. If you don't have the answer, you don't have the answer, but I don't understand that. I mean, short of the commission, giving you a directive to answer it, I think it gives a bad impression on the Brooksville Police Department.
Okay, thank you. We'll move right along to the monthly reports. You have in front of you both the town's report and the report that was prepared by Francine. If I might, with regard to the report that is 26 of 52, which to me, I guess, represents the end of December 2010. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is that when all the sick days and the paid days that are paid twice a year were paid? And is that the reason partially for some of the increases?
There's a holiday pay.
Yeah, there's a holiday pay. But I guess what I was looking at, if you look at the December, okay, it's quite a substantial difference between the November, what was paid out in November, as opposed to what was paid out in December, and there's a significant amount there, and I guess, was there five pay periods, plus the fact that there were days that were paid? I see the 5 pay periods, plus the holiday.
The holiday
If you look at
pay.
the variance report, it explains, it says December 1st, 2010 holiday pay, and then the 5 weeks.
I get, yes, okay, but I guess I was also wondering whether or not, are there any sick days or days that are paid when people don't use their sick days, or,
Not in December, usually July is when they pay for
so
their.
they're only paid once a year, not twice a year?
Yes.
Oh, I thought they were paid
The
twice.
holiday pay is for holidays, but they've worked
Okay,
over the year.
okay. Now, with regard to the overtime, were you able to get that other information for me, from the town?
They are working on compiling that.
Oh, okay.
As you requested.
And then with regard to the fuel, does that reflect the cost of the increase in fuel costs?
Are you looking on the December bill, Sue?
Yeah,
There are 2 fuel
Yeah.
bills there. That's why it's so much higher.
I know, well, I guess it says 2 bills, but I guess I'm wondering what the per gallon cost was at that time.
I don't have the bill with me, I could get that for you.
Okay.
When did you take, Chief, when did you take those 2 vehicles off the road? Remember you,
Right, I think within the last week or so, when they finally came off the road, and the others were getting on the right. All the time you asked for that report, kind of was just finishing that up.
And the mileage reimbursement is just for, well, I don't know who, but for,
A lot of that is for the prosecutor traveling to and from court.
okay. And the other thing is, there is both charges here for Ospey Mountain for both communication and for the other as well.
Where are you looking at?
I'm looking at Ospey Mountain for communication, 2158. That's the electronics. Is that the fee for the maintenance agreement?
No, I believe it was for some type of work that was done. So I'd have to pull the bills. Now, the commission had approved payments prior to the manifest.
I've got a question about,
Go ahead, because I'll come back to it.
well, I don't want to interrupt you, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's fine, I can come back to it.
We're talking about, I asked about the vehicles, Chief, when those came off the road, you're saying about a week ago. And Friday, I had asked for the vehicle inventory. That's what I got sent, I got forwarded. Reviewing the bills, it looks like car 64, I hate saying that, it's from the old show. Unit number 64 and unit number 72, shows you how old we are. We get bills from State Motors, and I'm looking at the unit number 72. It went in December 1st with a mileage of 120,000. And it came out, I believe, the same day. My question is when, you say, I thought these were supposed to come off the road prior to last week. I thought they were coming off back in the end of November, beginning of December.
I have to go over the bills we got on that answer.
I guess my question would be, like this one here, 64. Unit 64 had almost 115,000 miles on it, and it went in December 29th. So that would be in line with coming off the road like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. That would be a high mileage vehicle. The other high mileage is 72. which had 120,000 miles. And I guess my question would be is, if we know we're taking these two vehicles off the road, why spend money on it at State Motors to get them worked on when we're gonna take them out of the pool and give them to the town?
As I said, I'd have to look at the bills and talk to the lieutenant, find out exactly what the repair was, or was there a checkup, or what it was.
I don't see a problem with the gasoline. We're 46% expended, so we're in decent shape on that.
I just wondered what the cost per
Yeah.
gallon was, whether or not it had,
And depending on what it goes to the next 6 months.
yeah,
We get that through the state, right?
Yes.
Go to the state fuel
Yeah.
depot.
I think at the time, at the end of December, I think it was $2.74, I believe, a gallon.
I think it's gone up to the 3 now.
are you all set?
Well, I'm talking about the inventory here,
Yep.
because this has to do with money, and we're talking manifest, right? This shows that we're down to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 black and whites,
10.
down to 10 black and whites.
Yeah, 10 for-
Are,
You got 4
Oh, yeah.
grouped together, 5 grouped together, and 1 second from the last, the way this is put together.
so they're not all Crown Victoria?
No, they are.
Okay, so 1, 2,
10 was
3,
the big
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Missing one?
What am I counting wrong? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 Crown Victorias on this list. I got units 63, 65, 66, 67, 71, 73, 81, 82, and 83.
And if you go to the second to the last entry, you see unit 101, which is a 2004, I'm sorry, a 2010.
Oh, that's the new one that we put into service.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have
That makes
10.
10.
Do we have any motorcycles?
No, well, we have a dirt bike, but not a street pole.
Does the, how old is that dirt bike? You know?
It was bought sometime after 9/11 with federal money, so it's quite a few years old now.
You know how much mileage is on it?
No, offhand, I don't.
Has it been used since the
I don't
last
believe it-
couple of years?
Yeah, I don't believe it has.
All right, so we had 14 black and whites, we're down to 10,
I think we had 12, and now we're down to 10.
12 down to 10. And we're gonna eliminate
So we eliminate 2
2 more in the next fiscal year, right?
Well, the end of this year, I believe, right, June. So we'll be heading into the next fiscal year at 8.
At 8.
So if you look at something else, has a catastrophic failure, we obviously won't put the money into it because we keep getting rid of it anyway.
We have a crime scene van too, right? Or a critical incident van?
Right.
Which one was that? What vehicle was that?
That, I believe, is should be the last vehicle on your list, the E350 box truck.
A 97? That's got about 115,000 miles on it.
Yep.
Thank you.
I have a couple of them. If you recall last time, Francie, we talked about the fact of when the manifest was done, and you said, or we had noticed on the bills that we were ending up paying late fee payments and finance charges and all that. And I've gotten from the town a number of those bills, and we have been hit quite a few times with those. And the suggestion that was made to me, and I think it applies for everyone within the department, that if and when there is an expenditure, that even if it has to be charged, that that slip be sent right away to the town for payment after it has been approved. Because what's happening is, it seems as though you wait for the bill to arrive, and then when the bill comes, you know, you match it up or check it off to see whether or not that's indeed what they're charging you for. And what's happening is, on this particular one for December 20th, there was a late fee of $39 and then a finance charge of $1.50. And,
You mean when I get a receipt, I
well,
should submit it without the actual?
well, as long as, you know, or you gotta do something. I mean, we can't keep on having these. The next month in, let's see, I looked at another one, there was a late fee of $39 again, and there was a finance charge of $29.45. Can't have that. So we have to find a way around that.
When I receive the credit card bills, that's when I submit them to the town after the commission approves it on the manifest. Now,
But supposing, I don't know, somebody goes out and, I don't know, whether or not it's for meals or whatever, don't they submit the slip to you?
there will be a receipt, yes.
Why can't you submit that, as she suggested?
I've never been aware that we could do that without the actual bill itself.
Well, it would certainly minimize these,
Where would they submit the payment to without the proper bill?
well, as long as is the person must, when they get a slip, get where they charged it. Because like I say, you look at these.
These late fees?
Yep. There, look at the other one.
And these are occurring because you're waiting for the bill to come in? from
And
the
to
credit
match
card
up
company?
with the,
When I get the bill, sometimes takes longer to get approved at times. It depends on when the bill comes in, and then we get approval, we submit it to town hall.
All right, well, that-
Payment, they don't send the payment out immediately.
All right.
They have a process themselves also.
What are these credit card charges for? What type of stuff is
they
being
say,
charged?
they show what they're,
Where? What does it say that's what they're for?
let's see. That one
Gives you a
doesn't have
bill.
it. Those are the late fees, I'm sorry, I
Right.
didn't give you those.
But there
Yeah.
should be itemized bill from the credit card company. Who ate at the 99 restaurant?
That was probably during a selection process, I would assume. I'd have to look at the original receipt. Sometimes when you have an oral board for outside people,
This would have been September 27th.
You lost me. You want the evidential or the substantiation, whoever went out and charged, you've got a receipt. You want her to send that up immediately to town hall?
Well, that's what the town hall said to me, or I shouldn't say town hall, that's what the finance director said to me. That's the only way of alleviating both those late charges and those finance charges.
No, she's sending up once she gets the charge from the credit card company, she's sending it up immediately after she gets approval. How will you lost me, I don't know how that will.
Well, let's start
accelerate
all over again, okay? I go someplace and I either have a meal or whatever, or I get gas, okay, and I get a slip, okay? Should I wait for the bill to come in before I submit it? In the meantime, that's what's happening, is there is both a late fee that's being assessed to us, and there is a finance charge. That's not right.
Well, I don't understand this, maybe somebody can clarify it. There's a stamp up top here that says received November 28th, 2010. And then there's a police payment approved by the chief on November 22nd, 2010. So I would assume that the chief approved it in November 22nd, then it got sent down to finance? They received it?
I don't know, is that finance stamp? I don't know.
I don't know, we'll pass it along to you, but that's, would be my question, whose stamp is that? But this gets approved in
This is
November.
finance's stamp.
Is that finance's stamp?
Stamp, because that's her,
MT?
yeah.
That's what it is? All right. The transaction date is September 23rd, 99 Restaurant, for $58.46. That's one of them. Well, that is the one. That doesn't get approved until November. So if this goes out in September, the transaction date is September, it's posted on the 27th by the credit card company, 4 days later, and it gets approved in November, the end of November. Isn't that why we're incurring the late fee?
What is the date of the actual bill itself? Does it say at the top?
The payment due date is November 17th.
I
So,
mean, we probably had to wait for a commission meeting in the manifest to get approved before I could submit it for payment
were we doing manifest back then?
in November.
Yeah, we did. What was the date that,
But the date of service was in September. So the bill would have had to come in October, I would think, and then it doesn't get passed along and approved by the chief until the end of November.
Depends on the vendor, when he submits it.
I guess all I'm saying is that there has to be a way of, this is not really right at all.
So what are these credit cards being used for, chief?
Generally, they're used for, as you was pointed out, a few times if somebody, if we have an oral board, we take the board to lunch, that's what we do for them, because they take the time out of their department to come here. The only other time that would generally be used is training, if somebody goes away to school for training, like an IACP course or something like that.
They get travel money.
Right, with the,
But that's not my concern. My concern is that we're incurring late fees and finance fees. And that shouldn't be, because it's over and above what the cost is for that we're incurring costs.
And that's my question is, if this was done, you know, I mean, I pay this service was September 23rd. Okay, I'm not nickel and diming you, I just want to understand the process as to why we're incurring late charges. I think I have an idea. September 23rd, this was done, it gets posted by the credit card company on September 27th. It doesn't get approved for payment by you until November 22nd. So that leaves us the entire month of October to have received the bill from the credit card company, right? And then almost the entire month of, I mean, I can only show you what's on there.
It seems like this is, I don't know, I know it's results. It seems
Yeah.
like there's a month missing there for some reason.
I agree.
Well, like I say, I think we need to look into that because, like I say, we shouldn't be paying for those.
So the minute the bill comes in, you process it, correct?
Yes, and, well, I put it on the manifest for approval for the.
But what I'm saying is that the town finance director is suggesting that you use the receipt that they're given. And if the chief approved them, why wouldn't you send that in? That way there, you could avoid the finance charge and the late fee.
I'm under the understanding the commission has approved everything before we submit it.
That's true, but why don't you send it to us for the manifest?
I've never known to do it that way before, without the actual bill. I can check with finance if you'd like, but I don't know how they would know where to direct it besides writing a note every time.
Well, there's gotta be a way around it, I'm sorry.
We have to know why these aren't being paid on time. And I understand that if you have to give it to if we have to approve it, there's going to be
Under old business, Neighborhood Watch, future meeting.
yeah, just want to give you an update that the neighborhood watch meeting was held on January 19th. There'll be another one held on January 26th. And then the final class meeting, if you will, for that group will be February 2nd. So it's not in the program, obviously, it's still going, it has been, groups are getting a little bit larger.
How many does that make us? Is Bill Shafford still doing it?
He is still.
The next item is the commissioner stipend in chapter 412.
I'd like to address that if I can.
Okay,
I want to I stand corrected. Apparently I made a mistake in my interpretation of the stipend and who authorizes it, and if we are authorized. After checking into it, it apparently is the opinion of legal counsels that we do not, the police commission does not fall under the state RSA, it falls under the chapter 412. And in chapter 412, it's very explicit, and it states that the town council or the board of selectmen will set the pay rate for the police commissioners. I had read, as most of you probably,
105.
most of you probably know, that 105 that I thought applied to all police commissioners in the state, but as we've come to learn over the recent months that Hooksett is unique, and when it comes to police commissions and the governing of police commissions by town councils, et cetera, et cetera. So, having said that,
you want a motion, please, Sam?
first of all, I want to, I guess, apologize to Commissioner Roy if I put you in a tight spot of having you think that you had cashed a check that you were going to have to refund. And secondly, I'll make the motion that we rescind my prior motion about...
That was January 3rd. I researched it, January 3rd, 2011.
So I do want to state publicly, I stand corrected.
Okay.
And it is what it is. So this has been set by the town council, and it is what it is.
Will I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The budget proposal update, we did our presentation to the town council, and we're scheduled, I believe, on February 5th, if I'm correct, to go in front of the budget committee. Does anybody know what time we might be scheduled?
I don't have a schedule yet, because you're with the fire and admin and solid waste. So you typically go last, don't you? typically?
Isn't that wonderful?
Not that you could, do you have a preference? I don't know.
I would like to go first, but
But we are getting paid for this now.
I take my time.
And for the record, it's $400 a year.
Can I myself or Leanne get back to you on an actual
Sure,
schedule?
I would just be curious as to,
All we did at the last meeting, Chair, was to determine which departments would be showing up on that day. We did not
just send me
schedule.
either a schedule of when, like the town council did give us an idea of when they thought we were going to be heard, and it was, went pretty quickly, so I appreciate that.
Sure.
The next item is the recording clerk update. Where we are right now is that we have a conditional offer to someone to take that position, and I need a vote of confidence from the commission that they're agreeable to that. The recording clerk.
Yep.
That we did have interviews, and there were 3 candidates. One who decided that she wasn't going to interview at the last minute, and we interviewed 2 others. One of them definitely rose above the other, and we offered a conditional based on the fact of whether or not the commission was willing to go forward with that, and also based on the fact of what the background check and other things that needed to be done, so I'm looking for,
Just quick clarification, the recording clerk is going to be recording the police commission minutes
that's correct,
only, correct?
that's correct.
Not to be used elsewhere, but just to come to
Specifically for the police commission, right,
minutes.
right.
Now, do we have,
We gave them both, remember if you recall that I had, at one of the prior meetings, I gave you both a job description,
right,
and we did post an ad and everything, so
are we
we
gonna,
did.
is that recording, I mean, I would suggest that the recording clerk, not, is this clerk able to take the minutes the way it's being done at the town council?
Yes, we did have a discussion with regard to that. In fact, one of the questions was, that was posed to me was whether or not we had a laptop that was available. And at first I looked to the town to see if they had one, but in fact the town, all the laptops were being used. And fortunately, when I mentioned it to Captain Daigle says that the department does have one, so we would not need to make that expenditure for a laptop.
Is it fairly new? I mean, it's not like, okay, so there's one available strictly for that.
So I would,
Well, then, if you've vetted this person out, I would make the motion that we entertain an appointment, make an employment offer to that individual.
Can you tell us what the conditional pay is?
the pay is $12 an hour.
And she's amenable to that?
Yes, she is.
Second?
Okay. Any other discussion with regard to that?
Is there gonna, no employment contract when it's an employee at will?
It's an employee at will.
So she does a lousy job. You don't have to,
Well, what?
Is she doing non-public?
it's a she, I take it.
Yes,
Doing non-public?
yes. So, call for a vote, all those in favor of the vote to go forward
Gotta be
with
clear.
the recording clerk?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, seeing none. And we do have the laptop. Thank you for Captain Daigle, because that really helps out. And I did submit to Francine the bill for the newspaper ad that was given to me. And then secondly, did you have in this manifest the two,
The one that you are going to approve tonight, the background check fees.
okay, and the other for the background check and the other fees, they were also in the manifest.
Okay.
So people are okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And I think the only other one is the, manifest. We need the manifest.
There's another new one that's coming on, but I haven't reviewed yet.
This one? This
Nope,
is the new
new
one?
one, right there.
Okay.
I haven't reviewed it yet.
Okay.
Well, you can talk, I will review it.
Okay, we have the manifest for the January 18th, 2011 that's already been reviewed, and over 300 is the, I did find out about that. So we can include that amount right now. Previously, I had taken out $300 that was for an opinion that we had gotten, and I was holding off payment until I got all the information, but I did get the information with regard to that, so I believe we can go forward. So it is indeed the original amount. So I'll make the motion of going forward with the manifest for January 18th, 2011, in the amount of $13,389.26.
Second?
Any discussion with regard to that? Anyone agree?
Well, we've got to take a vote. You
Yep.
seconded it,
Yep. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, that's approved. And then we also have a payroll manifest for July 18th, 2011, in the amount of did I say July? Sorry, January 18th, 2011. And the total amount is, Francine, you didn't add up, please? I'll wait. I'll wait, she has to, she didn't add the manifest.
You have a question on this manifest, Chief? Library fees? What's that for?
That's for a book, that's for a book,
It's
isn't it?
actually the town administrator had asked,
To purchase
had
a
all
book.
department heads
I just know.
it was a management book that the department head, the department administrator felt was very good for department heads and their staff to read and discuss in the department head meeting. So, since we go to those meetings and review of the book, it was a good book, so we purchased 2 of those, which will be read by myself and the staff. And then we'll be on, at least, it's a good management book, quick read, but it's also, I think it will help us be aligned a little bit more with some current thinking of our peers in the other towns of ours.
Okay, getting back to the payroll manifest for January 18th, 2011, the amount is $161,968.26. Okay. All those, any discussion or any questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none? Approved. We got another one here that,
This bill here, Francine, from Walmart, the Walmart community card, it doesn't give what purchases were made, or,
it's just a link.
See, there's an email
Just-
attached there where I was discussing with finance.
The link, it's just a link for you, isn't it?
what was this, the purchase of one night, and I guess what I'm looking at is, what are the purchases for? The 119.18.
I'll
Shows-
have to go back and look exactly, we get miscellaneous stuff, sometimes for the cruisers.
Can you
office
include-
equipment.
In order for us to look, be able to understand what's being purchased, we need copies of what the bill is that shows what the purchases are.
That was just for the
This
plate.
is,
Right, that was
you
a
already
late-
paid the other part of it.
Right,
Right,
that's just a late fee again.
right, again, yeah.
Do you want me to pull the prior bill for that?
At some point, it's not, you don't have to do it right now, obviously, at some point, I'd like to look at it. So we'll know what's what. I mean, I just wanna make sure that credit card, is being used in ways that it's intended, as opposed to maybe setting up an account somewhere. I mean, I understand if somebody's gotta travel, I would think that's the intent of the card, if they have to go somewhere, we don't expect an employee to put out their own money and get reimbursed. But if they're, I don't know what it's for, so.
I get, if I recall properly, I think some of it was for some cleaning supplies for the department, all of it.
Where do we normally get cleaning supplies? I mean, is this a last minute thing, or is this something that we always do? You go to Walmart as
We've
opposed
always,
to
like
janitorial services?
dishwashing soap, not janitorial services, that's supplied by the town, but Clorox wipes, Lysol, things like that.
Why is this a credit card though and not or a Walmart card? Why isn't it just a bill that they send you like if you went to the hardware store, they would send you a bill.
They won't do that, that I'm aware of. I know one time we tried to do that.
Is the interest rate different on this card versus, where's the one for Citizen? We have that?
They're right here.
Because this APR is 18%. What is the one for Citizen that we have for the 99 restaurant and stuff? Should be down the bottom. Should show an APR. Anyway. All right, so this purchases is.
APR
It's
right here,
11
11 point and 19.8.
Yeah, but that's a cash advance.
Yeah,
So 11.24, right, percent versus
18.
18%. So why wouldn't we use a credit card from Citizens to go to Walmart and swipe it there as opposed to using a Walmart card? Cheap. Do you think it would be wiser to use a lower interest rate, especially where we're accumulating all these
We
finance
need
charges?
to revisit all of that.
No, now's a good time.
Oh, I have no problem, but I'm saying they need to revisit that. I need to sign that. Okay, this is the last one for manifest for January 25th that you previewed. Okay,
That goes in here, that goes on top for her, right?
yep, so, but you need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the January 25th, 2011 manifest for $4,660.23.
Okay? Any discussion with regard to the motion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Folks, you gotta watch me on my feet. At that.
Put it in cap.
That's not good enough. Okay?
Into,
HB, the policies.
we just had, how many come out of the academy, Chief, recently?
One come out in December, and there are two in there now.
In December, did you attend the ceremony, the graduation ceremony? Okay. When was the last time you attended a graduation ceremony?
Been a while.
The reason I ask is on the same token, we're talking about, you remember the Merrimack County Chiefs of Police Association?
Currently, yeah.
Do you attend those meetings?
Sometimes, depending what the schedule is. A lot of times I'll have a prosecutor go because they have a county attorney there talking about issues that more relate to laws and issues like that, so I'll have to have him go and then she comes back with his report.
I'm more concerned about the graduation ceremonies for non-certified that we send from the town of Hooksett to the police standards and training, go through the academy, and then go through graduation. As you know, it's a very important day in that person's life. It only happens once in their career, and that it should be, if we're sending somebody, it should be the chief of police at a minimum, and other people can go, obviously, but I still have the recollection of my graduation back in '81. And, you know, relatives go,
You're dating yourself, you know.
hey, I'll tell everybody I'm 56. I don't have a problem with it. I weigh 255 pounds. All right, and a size 13. Okay, so let's move on. So, in all seriousness, I think it's important that the chief of police attend these functions. One, to give support to the officer that we're hiring, shows their family that we're involved in, that the department's sponsoring them and they're involved. So having said that, based on what you're telling me, I would like to make a motion that the commission adopt the following. This shall be an adopted written formal policy and rule governing the Hooksett Police Department and shall take effect immediately. The chief of police will attend all graduation ceremonies for Hooksett police officers who are sent to New Hampshire Police Standards and Training Council for certification as full-time officers, unless the chief is unable to attend due to illness or is otherwise excused by the police commission. That's my motion.
Commissioner, could I get a copy of that?
Right here.
So you want this, you're making the motion right now, but you'd like to have this down the road, further down the road as an adopted
Yes.
policy, as one of our policies?
Yes. Because of the way that the laws are written, regards to 105 for the chief to follow, as well as Chapter 412 for the commission to follow. I think that the way this is written covers the commission as well as the chief of police. That makes it, he has to attend. I think it's a good policy to have. I think short of being sick or excused by the commission, the chief should attend. That's not to say that captains, lieutenants, patrol officers, or anybody else who is not working outside of the command staff, I should say, should go to these things. Very important time in somebody's life. And it's a good representation of the department, and if the chief doesn't go, I think it sends a bad message. That's just my personal feeling. So that's the motion I'm making, that we adopt that. If you want, I can read it again for the commission.
I just want to look at it for a second. That's okay? Commissioner Roy, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I don't know why it has to be a motion or why it has to be in writing.
Because the chief hasn't attended a graduation ceremony in a long time, my understanding. Is that right, chief? Been quite a while.
About the commissioners, you think they should go?
I think if they're free, they should go. That's why I wouldn't prevent other people other than the chief going. I certainly would like to go, if I'm on the commission and where they're hiring somebody at the chief's recommendation, absolutely, I'll go as long as I'm in the state. I'd be happy to.
I've been to one where that was about 5 years ago, I think. But wasn't it held at night?
Yeah.
It was a Sunday night, I believe.
Usually Friday.
Right.
Friday nights.
But I know it was at night.
Not an inconvenience, and if the commission can't go, so be, excuse me, so be it, but this is addressing the chief, this isn't addressing the commission.
I certainly have no problem with it. I do think it's a good practice to have, because I think other communities, they do make a celebratory thing out of it to, when they have graduation and whatnot, so I think it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I believe 99% attend the graduation.
So I guess I would second that motion. Chief, do you have any issues with that or any concerns? Okay. Anything else, Mr. Roy? Okay, guess we're ready to call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none. And you'll bring that back as a formal policy later on?
Actually, what we'll do is we'll type it out and have it something that the three of you could sign, so that.
Yeah, but I mean, you'll have it in a policy form, whether or not you give it a number and,
Yes.
and an adopted date, the whole 9 yards that it needs to have.
It'll go in the
So it's a
AOL.
formalized policy to be included in the policy book or the policy manual? Okay, okay, thank you.
The other issue I have is, the last time, I think back in December, we talked about having the the administrative lieutenant stop doing those duties and go out on the street. And I believe the last time we spoke in a meeting, excuse me, it wasn't December, it was prior to that, it was, I think, November. The last time we spoke, we learned that the month of December, the administrative lieutenant was taken off the street and put back doing the administrative duties. And when I asked you about it, you said, I asked you why you did that, after getting direction from the commission, and you said that it's because state law allowed you to do that. So on the heels of that, I'm going to make another motion. The motion would read as follows. This will be an adopted written formal policy and rule governing the Hooksett Police Department and shall take effect immediately. The position of administrative lieutenant shall be eliminated, and the prior duties of the administrative lieutenant, such as, but not limited to, fleet management and AOM policy updates, shall be the responsibility of the chief of police. I'm up for discussion.
Question, is that within our authority?
If we are the, under chapter 412, yes, it's a rule governing the Hooksett Police Department, and it's a written formal policy, and it's to be followed by the chief of police according to 105. The commission decides what rules and policies are in place for the chief to follow.
Okay, so what you're saying basically is that we're gonna insert this rule in there.
That would be a rule and a formal policy for the Hooksett Police Department. That position be eliminated and that those duties be taken over by the chief. That is not to say that the current lieutenant that's assigned to that administration is to be terminated or relieved of duty, just reassigned.
Well, I guess the question then becomes, when you say that the chief is going to take over those duties, I guess I'd like to hear from, from both the chief and whoever, the ability to do that as a department or whatever.
I would respectfully submit that that's not a good idea. Just recently, the lieutenant went to a training class where our insurer, LGC, has put together a book of model policies. He's in the process of reviewing that along with the IACP policies that we always review. That's an ongoing process. Most departments have somebody in admin that's where they put most of their focus. So I think it would be a disservice to the department to not have somebody who has that as a primary job.
I would respectfully disagree, and I would say that it should be your responsibility. We're not big enough to have a lieutenant sitting doing AOM policies, and when didn't we get a job description that was about 800 pages long?
Well, I don't know if it was 800 pages long.
Well, I was being facetious.
I know you were, but I think we got two different things. I think we got one that lieutenant submitted to us, and it had to do with what he said his tasks were, and then there is one for in the AOM manual that says, what their responsibilities are. So I don't know if the task and the responsibilities, were one and the same. In fact, they were perhaps quite different insofar that the tasks that he was doing were certainly expanded in comparison to what the job description was. But I guess the other thing that I'd like to talk about when the chief says about LGC, this is where my concern is and where it has been a little bit with regard to this particular topic. I always interpreted, or understood rather, the fact that that individual was writing a lot of those policies and that they were coming to the commission for the commission to approve and over the course of time, that those policies had been through their legalese as to whether or not they were proper and whatnot. And from what I understand is a lot of it comes from LGC, and that person is not the person that's writing the policies. So that whole impetus, so to speak, on that job is not as great as I thought it was. And I need you to clarify that for me.
You're incorrect. Number one, LGC does not write the policies. They give us samples, we get samples from the academy, we get samples from the International Association of Chiefs of Police. That person in that position here, like in other departments, along with the command staff, merges that into a policy that works for us.
But they're basically, it's a template, isn't it a template what they get from LGC?
It's not always from LGC, but it's not just, somebody has to go through the template, and every place is different. Number two, if I can, the commission never, in my 11 years, has never been approving day-to-day policies.
Well, who does?
I do.
You come to us and you give us policies, and we had
Sign
this
off on it.
discussion.
I've seen the signature page.
Excuse me. We've had discussions on this. When I first came on board, you were insistent that the commission is only involved with the first section of
Right.
the AOS.
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1. And then we've since learned that the commission is not just involved in Chapter 1. We sign off on every single AOM that comes down the pike that you want approved. You give it to us, and you have us review it and sign it.
That's not what you signed on the authority page.
Which
Every
authority?
commission every year signs an authority page that talks about Chapter 1 is the authority of the commission under Chapter 412, and the chief has a full authority to implement a corrective system, and that's Chapter 2 of the AOMs.
Do you have my signature on that?
Yep, 817 of 10.
Is there anything in there that prevents the police commission from coming up with any new rules to govern the police department?
No.
Okay, so I rest my case on that. I have this.
I thought you
rule.
did say that. Didn't you
But
just
we don't
say
bring
that
every-
at a meeting
We
though,
change
that
the
it was
pursuit
up to the
policy.
commission though, to, if the
The rules and
commission,
regulations, which is Chapter 1, not Chapter 2, which is the day-to-day policy. If we change the pursuit policy, I don't bring that to the commission.
I can
and ask
appreciate
the-
that,
And ask the
right.
commission to approve the pursuit policy.
You haven't brought forth AOM policies outside of the rules and regs, in SOPs, if you will, operating procedures? You haven't brought any changes forth to us to sign?
Offhand, I don't remember any. You have signed the rules and regulations, but I can't remember any offhand. I mean, day-to-day, we change the policies as changes come up. So it's possible, but I don't remember any.
Well, getting back to what the initial discussion was, fleet manager, we talked about it, doesn't need to be the lieutenant. We still have issues with manpower, and, taking new recruits down to the uniform shop in Haverhill, and keeping track of vehicle maintenance and the other duties that come. I can't believe that we need, you know what, it's not that I can't believe, I don't believe that this department needs somebody that's just gonna do AOM review policies and get information from various agencies and come up with policies and write them and do fleet management. It just doesn't make sense. It's not done that way in other departments. There are large departments. We're not a large department. There's other departments that are larger than this one that have, Bedford, for example, the fleet manager is a civilian, is a retired officer. We talked about this. You talked about having the current lieutenant. In any event, I'm not going to rehash that. We're authorized by Chapter 412 to, do you have Chapter 412? Because I certainly can get it in a second. You have it?
Yeah, number 1, promulgate and enforce all rules for the government of the police force.
For the government?
Government of the police force.
Okay.
And that's Chapter 1, which you.
So we're allowed to come up with rules governing the police department, am I not? And what I read was, this will be a formal policy and rule governing the Hooksett Police Department. I don't know what's difficult about this.
Let me just go back to the discussion that we had last year, Chief, when we were working on the budget. I think we had a discussion about the fact of other communities using a layperson to do that job as far as overseeing the fleet, if you recall.
Yep.
Okay? And I think the understanding was that it didn't require someone to have that position in order to do that job. Is that not right?
That's correct, but as I explained, the fleet is not the only thing that.
Okay, but now I'm just saying, but you agree with that? With that,
Yes,
agree,
we'll talk about that
okay.
merging into a
Same
living
thing
position
with-
in the future.
Does the writing of policies or maintaining the policy updates and rewrites, does that require somebody to have that type of position?
I think they at least have to have some law enforcement experience to understand the industry that they're writing about and understand when the staff is talking about issues, how to write that.
Right. But I guess where I see a little bit, I say a little bit, maybe more than a little bit, where I see a difference to compare to what I understood previously. Originally, I thought this person did all of the writing of the policies. And in retrospect, that is not really the case. And like I said, if I might finish, that it's basically a template that they use. Granted, they look at what other departments have for policies, but they don't go back and reinvent the wheel by writing a policy, from scratch, or at least I don't think so.
I guess I would invite you then to sit down with the person that currently does that, ask those specific questions, have him show you what he does or doesn't do on a typical policy and the maintenance of those policies to get a better idea of how that works.
If that's the case, why is it that this department spent tens of thousands of dollars for policy review from an outside law firm? If that person's in charge of that, and if that person, and this is not, I'm not talking about an individual, I'm talking about the position. If that position is supposed to do all of that, why is it that we have spent that kind of money?
We didn't spend tens of thousands of dollars.
I have the bills in my briefcase.
The review that was done on that retainer, or part of that retainer, not all that was used, was as an attorney to look at the labor parts of the personnel plan, not general department type policies.
I've got a bill here dated June 16th of 2008. The service was rendered on May 19th, 2008. It was 2.10 hours, and the call for service that they say is review AOM and personnel policies to determine changes that are required. The one underneath that, review AOMs and personnel policies for needed changes. That's one. The next one is July 18th, 2008. Services rendered June 18th, 2008. Review policies for changes. So which, I can go
The
through this.
if you look at the AOM book, the personnel plan is just one AOM of many in that.
I understand that. I have looked at it. And I understand the difference between personnel issues and AOM policies. If they're not looking at AOM policies, they shouldn't have billed us for it, right? If
The personnel plan is part of the AOM.
the whole department's part of the AOM. My point is if we're doing that, if we had done that in the past, why is it that this person isn't doing all of it? Why are we spending thousands and thousands, why did we spend thousands and thousands of dollars to have it come in? P205, what's that? In the AOM, P205. That is,
Any of the reviews that were done by the attorneys, authorized by the commission, for stuff like the ADA and specific legal issues that are contained within our personnel.
meeting with Lieutenant regarding revised policies, legal research regarding U.S. Supreme Court case on cell phones. Review policies for a meeting with so-and-so. Telephone conference with so-and-so regarding new policies. It's just the list goes on and on and on. So, we put a stop to that, and I still don't see a need for that to be happening. So, having said that, that is why I drafted the motion that I drafted. We do not need a lieutenant administrative position to review AOM policies. Because that's what you tell us he does, but yet that individual position has to go, has done in the past, gone to attorneys to get a review and get an okay for it. We don't need the position, especially now where we're shorthanded. So we tried, we tried back in, I think, October, November, to suspend that and put that position out on the street. And in December, that's not happening. It's currently not happening. The month of January, still in administration. And when you question about it, apparently after the directive was given, you must have looked into it and saw that, guess what, the state law says I can do that, and that was your response. So in response to your response, I'm coming up with this. We have every right to come up with rules governing the Hooksett Police Department according to 412, and that's what I'm putting for. So my motion's out there.
Just a follow-up to, in this conversation, I think at that time when you were asked about it, Chief, you said that there was stuff that he needed to get done, but that he was going to be back out there. Why wasn't that done?
There are days when we do use him during the day, but not in the assigned shift. And he's still doing it. He's getting the new people, the new person we just hired, getting that person set up and equipped to be turned over to the patrol division for training. He's working on this new policy review, all this book that LGC gave us.
Excuse me, what do you mean by getting set up and equipped?
So getting uniforms for the person, getting all their equipment issued to them.
How long does that take?
2 to 3 days. Depending on what we have here and what we have to go by.
And what else, what's the rest of the time consumed with?
So Lieutenant, like I said, policies are a constant ongoing issue.
I can't imagine, why is it that policies are an ongoing issue at the Hooksett Police Department? It's constant review, constant updates. I mean, that's crazy. I can't imagine, short of Supreme Court decisions coming down saying you have to change the way you do business, that a policy needs to be changed.
Well, we don't see any of those policies.
The AOMs are part of the rules governing the Hooksett Police Department. So, I don't get it, and this is my motion. It doesn't get seconded, but I'm on record saying that position needs to be eliminated, paying a lieutenant's salary, regardless of who that individual is, paying that salary for the person to be in that position outside.
I guess I have a couple of questions with regard to the signed document that you have from the commissioners, whether or not that negates our ability to do that. And secondly,
Thank you.
what, pardon me?
Go ahead.
I have a question with regard to that. I need to find out whether or not that negates our ability to do that. And secondly, as I've said before, and I've said a couple of times, that I have concerns over the fact that I think, given of what we need for command staff, that I feel that we're somewhat top-heavy, and that perhaps you need to reorganize in such a fashion that whether or not that position becomes a part-time position or whatever it is, I just think that, there's too much emphasis on the fact of what the need is, and I don't know if we really do have that much of a need. And like I said to you prior to that, we never see policies that have been revamped or whatever, and I doubt very much, but I'm not going to call anybody, say anybody's untrue about what they're saying, but I don't believe that this individual takes these policies, and starts writing them totally. There's a template, and they follow the template, or they follow what other communities, and they don't go back and reinvent the wheel. And that's my thing. But we had discussed last year, when we were discussing about the budget, that position should be a civilian position, and not that I don't necessarily support it to some degree, but I guess I would need more information, and I guess I would ask to have it put on the agenda again. That's next month or next time we meet, in order to get some of the information, if that
What
is agreeable.
information is it that you might be looking for?
Well, a couple of things. With regard to the statement that he said we signed, whether or not that precludes us from going forth and establishing these rules, and then...
Chapter 412.
Right, okay. I need either an opinion or something on that, whether or not that document states that we can't do that, because that's what he's saying to us. And I guess the other thing is, if we're going to do these kinds of things, I guess what I don't understand is why the policies are not coming to this commission. Why they don't.
Because I don't believe it's your authority to. I mean, honestly, what experience do you have to approve a proper pursuit policy, or a proper bad check policy, or a proper transport prisoner policy?
What is it we are supposed to approve? What type of rules, Chief?
The rules and regulations for the running of the department, chapter 1, which you approved, which is courtesy, all those type of issues which are in chapter 1.
But we're not supposed to approve any of the operating business of the police department?
The day-to-day stuff, I don't believe so, no.
All right. I'm not saying
That's my belief.
I'm not saying that this is a day-to-day stuff. This is a permanent rule. This is a rule that goes in that the police chief has to follow and the department follows. Plain and simple.
I'm not talking about that one, I'm talking about the commissioner was talking about with the standard AOM as a standard operating AOMs.
Why is it then that the AOMs are given to the commission? Both books are given to the commission.
So the commission can have some clue what's going on. They have
We
someone
have
talk
a
to you
clue.
about some issue, the commissioners have some clue.
Why not just give us the first part that you say that we're only supposed to have? That we only have
In
take
past
place.
years, we've had commissioners that have wanted everything, we've had some commissioners that have wanted nothing, we've had some commissioners that have looked at just the first part, so it's every time there's a new commissioner tells us whether we offer the books, and the new commissioners tell us whether they want, some have taken them, read them, turned them back, some take them and keep them.
I was offered those books, and I was given a sheet to sign
Right.
that I'm in possession of those. I didn't ask you for those AOM books. I returned them and store them here. But I guess we could go around and around. If you have chapter 412, can I take a peek at it for a second, please?
I guess my suggestion would be to do some research on this rather than,
I'll tell you right now, I'm not willing to spend money on a legal opinion that everybody's...
I'm not saying a legal opinion.
Whose opinion do you want?
You know, the second part of it.
All I need is the 412 about us promulgating rules. Duties of the Hooksett Police Commission, 412:2, chapter 412. The police department shall promulgate and enforce all rules for the government of the police force. Appoint a chief of police, constables, superior officers, and other officers they deem necessary within the limits of funds appropriated. Fix the compensations of all members of the police department within the limits of funds appropriated, and remove any chief, constable, superior officer for just cause after due hearing, which cause shall be specified in order of removal. There should be another one about the update about how many days, 45 days? When is
That's in
that?
chapter 105.
That's in 105. So, in any event, when I look at this, we're supposed to promulgate and enforce all rules of the government for the police force. I don't know how many other opinions, we've got so many opinions that tell us, and I just conceded that I made a mistake earlier, and being the person that I am, I admit to my mistake, that we fall under 412, not 105. So,
I guess the only reason why I was stating that is at the last meeting or two prior meetings ago that you went back and rescinded a vote that you had made prior, a motion that you made at a prior meeting with regard to
the
some...
overtime?
Yeah,
Yeah, the overtime, yeah.
and I don't want to be in a situation where I'm trying to enforce something that I don't have the authority to do so. And what I'm questioning is the fact that if I sign that, whether or not that does not allow me to do so. I want to be, consistent.
What that says is that we give him the authority.
That's right.
That doesn't say that we remove ourselves from having the
That's not what
authority.
he said. That's not what he said.
Well, read what we signed. Do you want
What
to
did
pass
you
that
say?
down?
What did you say?
That gives
Please
him the
repeat your
authority.
statement, Chief. Please
You have
repeat
to
your
read it.
statement.
You have to read it back.
Francine, repeat the statement that the chief made at that time.
And write down every comment you said.
Well, Chief, would you repeat what you said before?
I don't know the exact words. Let me just put it this way. You have the authority to make the rules, I mean, if you read 105-2A, formal policies, but I would suggest based on training I've had over the years that citing on specific positions, specific ranks, that we do not have the authority, the way I understood it over the years, under 105-2A to do that. I may be wrong, but that's information I've had from over the years. And so I would suggest that.
Why does it
before you
have
go
to
down-
cost us anything? Why can't we call LGC?
Well, that's what I was saying, before you go down any road of doing something else that might cross 105-2A potentially, that you look into it.
You have 105-2A?
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and read that for me?
The subject to such written formal policies as may be adopted by the appointing authority.
That's us, right?
Right, each chief of police, superintendent of police, or city marshal of any city or town is appointed rather than elected, shall have authority to direct and control all employees of his or her department in their normal course of duty, and shall be responsible for the efficient and economical use of all department equipment.
Okay. That doesn't take anything away from us. That gives authority to you. And you get your authority from us. There's no two ways about it.
I would suggest that, again, based on training I've had over the years, that you go back and look at some of the court decisions where courts have interpreted what 105-2A means.
Okay. Well, 105-2A relates to you. I thought we just went over that. And 412 relates to us. In any event, this says the authority, rules and regulations for the government of the police department of the town of Hooksett are promulgated by the Hooksett Police Commission as authorized by state law, chapter 412, the Acts of 1975. These rules and regulations are found in chapter 1 of this Administration and Operators Manual, AOM. The effective date of these rules and regulations shall be that indicated by the signature date. These rules and regulations shall remain in full force and effect until amended or rescinded. This gives the authority to the chief of police shall have full authority to implement a written directive system and to issue any written directive or order as is deemed necessary for the proper administration and operation of the police department. The written directives are in Chapter 2. A copy of each written directive will be forwarded to each police commissioner within 30 days of implementation. Why is it that we would have to have Chapter 2 if that's not part of the rules and regulations and the governing of the police department? And secondly, the rules remain in force until it's amended or rescinded by the police commission. So 412 covers us, 105 covers you. I'm not quite sure where the misunderstanding is coming from. We have full authority to make rules and policies governing the Hooksett Police Department. And we gave a directive, we followed the directive, and then decided that state law says he doesn't have to. That's fine. We'll just make a written policy, a rule governing it. So, otherwise, are you saying that the chief of police can have 20 staff members that are superior officers and only have 5 that are patrol officers?
That would be reasonable,
But you would have the authority to do that in your way of thinking and interpreting that law, right, 105? That you can move it around any way you want.
Well, no, because that's not economical, so.
Well, neither is a transport wagon, but that was done.
The rule that you want to put in, is it outside of Chapter 1?
Is it what?
Is it outside of Chapter 1?
No, this should be included in Chapter 1. It's a rule. Not a standard operating procedure. I'm not telling how to do the job, telling you can't
No.
have a position, period.
My opinion is, for whatever it's worth, is that we vet this out before we go forward. Not to say that I agree or disagree, but I just think it's worth us vetting it out and finding out whether or not that is indeed true. Because if it is true, like I said, I've already weighed in on the fact this is the second year that we talk about the issue of the department being somewhat top-heavy with administration. And, you know, that something needs to be done. The chief has his opinion with regard to, you know, the duties that this person has, but, you know, I think they're a little bit inflated, if you ask me, because like I said, I don't think that the individual is writing those policies. And as for the other, I think a civilian could certainly oversee the fleet. But I'm not willing to go the full route without getting more information. That's where it's.
Where do we get that information?
I guess I would vet it out with LGC. I'm not going to call an attorney to incur some costs, but I certainly would.
So you're going to present to LGC what my motion is?
Yep.
And see if they'll say
See
that
what
it's
they
okay
have
do?
to say. Yep.
All right.
Is that agreeable?
Well, if I don't get a second, I guess it is.
Don't have any choice, as long as we're gonna do this.
Well,
union
never
thing.
mind, I need you to weigh in on that.
I agree with, do what you want to do.
Well,
It's
that's,
all LDC.
All right, well, I have another one.
okay.
Let's see where this takes me. I'll make a motion on this, that we adopt this. This will be an adopted written, and let me preface this. It has to do with issues that we spoke about in the past. This will be an adopted written formal policy and rule governing the Hooksett Police Department and will take effect immediately. The Hooksett Department, excuse me, the Hooksett Police Department will have a dedicated route car with coverage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which will cover the west side of Hooksett. The patrol officer assigned will report to that route or sector at the beginning of each shift and will remain on that route or sector for the duration of each shift, with the exception of emergency and priority calls for service, or to assist another officer, or for other purposes that the route officer deems appropriate. The boundaries for the west car are as follows: the town lines to the north, south, and west, and the Merrimack River to the east. What that does is make it a rule that we have a car dedicated to the west side, period.
Now, at the budget presentation, I was asked if there was a designated west side car. And I said, no, there wasn't, okay? And I explained to him that the north car, that we use the north car to do part of the west side, and I explained that. But you disagreed with me, and you said something to the council, and I guess I don't quite understand. What was it that I misunderstood or I don't have right?
For quite a while now, my understanding through the patrol division is the northwest car is assigned to spend most of the time on the west side.
But we don't have a designated west side car. That was the question.
Not independent of the north, no. We've always said that.
We're still on this topic here, so if I can hold off on, I'd like to have more discussion on this, so I can explain, or get explanation on some
Okay.
stuff here. We'd ask for calls for service to be given out
Yes.
publicly.
Yeah.
Okay. In my package, we have calls for service that go back to 1995. I'm not sure why that's all included there, because all we're looking for is call for service in the present, or the recent past. But in any event, excuse me, geographical codes and boundaries were included in the package. According to this, there's 8 response sectors.
I would direct the question to Captain Daigle, who you asked if that could be done, and he said yes, and I asked if he'd be allowed to explain the reports he ran and what they mean.
No, I'm going to ask you. This says there's 8 response sectors. This is what comes up: N1, M1, W1, N2, S1, S2, and so on. It compiles the list and it gives what the boundaries are. We don't have 8 routes, 8 car routes. If we had 8 car routes going out all the time, then one would be assigned to each sector, I would assume. Right? But currently, we have a lot less than that. So why aren't these calls for service grouped east and west? If we only have two people out on the street and a supervisor, there should only be two routes.
Well, I can answer for that is back in the 80s, when I was not chief and the computer system was put in, the town was broken down codes that at that time the administration felt was a good way to keep track of different areas of town.
Okay.
So I can't answer for what the prior administration did as far as the geographic codes and boundaries being set up for the computer back in the 80s when the department went computerized.
Okay, but you can answer for what's happening today. And when calls for service are compiled, they're compiled into 8 different sectors that we would have to go through, or the public would have to go through and understand calls for service and where they are, whether they're south 1, 2, or 3, north 1, 2, 3, and the like. Wouldn't it be a lot easier to have, if we only have 2 routes out there, have two sectors?
No, because I believe that the reason that this was broken down this way years ago was to have a breakdown of the town if you then wanted to find out what was happening, say, in a specific area or multiple areas. Then in the computer, we would key in the different sectors, and you would get the numbers you needed. So if you were looking for the south sector, there's a south 1 and south 2. In the computer, we would query south 1 and south 2 for totals.
I'm guessing, and I'm not a computer person, but I'm guessing that these could be combined very easily. I could be wrong. I've been wrong once before. At least I thought I was wrong.
Once before?
Come on, it was a joke.
I know, that's why I said it.
I find it hard to believe that these can't be put together and eliminate all these geographical codes and just have perhaps 2. But when we talk about the cruiser routes, it was, you told us that it was the northwest that covered the west when needed. And I questioned, and then you told us that it spends primarily, the Northwest car spends primarily its time on the west side. And my response was, then why don't we just call it a west car if that car's going to be over there all the time? But it seems that there's been a lot of miscommunication in this regard. So my motion is, and I don't know if you want to research this again, Chairperson, but that's my motion, is to have a dedicated car respond to that location and cover that area. And if there's a 3rd car, then it's up to the supervisors, or the command staff, to decide where that 3rd car is going to cover, and covering both sides, backing up one side or the other when needed. It could be a floater, I don't know, whichever way that they would see fit. But we need a dedicated west car that goes to the west side and works the west side and then comes back.
Do we have a west side car?
Car that covers the west side.
Do we have a west side car?
Covers the west and the north. We have 3 cars out there, and they cover wherever they need to be covered. Initially, when they head out the door, one is on the south side, the east side of the river, one is on the west side, and there's the supervisor. The cars go where they need to go.
But is
we
there
don't
a
have 3.
designated west side car?
Nobody's designated specifically anyway. That's their general area of responsibility, but they're going to go where the
Is
call
there a designated west side car?
But they do have boundaries, because when I look at what their boundaries are for this, it shows that they do have boundaries. I mean, you're telling me that somebody that's assigned the northwest car,
They will patrol the north part of town and the west side of town. They will spend most of the time on the west side, and when a call for service comes in, if it's in the west, if it's in that area, they will be the primary car that's given the call unless they're already tied up.
so you're telling me that if somebody was in the northwest car that covers the north part of town and the west side of town, and they were down on bypass 28,
They wouldn't be down at bypass 28
Why not?
unless they had been pulled out of that sector by their supervisor.
but you said they don't have boundaries. They
The
don't
general
have sectors.
boundaries, yeah.
Well, I'm confused. Either, so would they get in trouble if they went down to the bypass and did a motor vehicle stop when they're supposed to be
Yes,
covered?
yes, they're
They
supposed
would.
to stay in, yes.
But they don't have boundaries, they're supposed to be primarily over there.
The boundary is what's outlined in what you just read.
Do you see where my confusion comes in? No?
Well, I got a bigger one, because when we were at the budget presentation, the question was asked whether or not there was a west side car. I responded no, that there was no west side car, and that I explained where the car went. You corrected me and left the impression that there was a west side car to them, that designated west side car. And there is no designated west side car. And I said afterwards, that's not what you said. You challenged, not only challenged, you said something different. And I want to know, is there a west side
shift leaves the building, one car basically, my knowledge, heads over to the west side and will take the calls for service that come in on the west side of town and the north sector of town.
Is that your rule that you put out to them? Because you say to the best of your knowledge, and to me that sounds like a caveat, that in case that's not happening, you know, what I need to know is it your rule that says when they go to duty that that's where they go?
Assuming nothing else is happening, yeah. If they're tied up with a prisoner, there's only one car that leaves the station, they go to their primary area.
You're stating the obvious, Chief. If they're tied up and there's a prisoner, of course they have to cover it. But their primary duty is to go to the west side when they leave
That's
this.
where there's a sign, yeah. Just like
So
the
it's
south, the south car covers the S1 you see in that list, the S2, and what would be, whatever the east sector is, out toward Canby, that's part of that car coverage. No different than if you were somewhere else. I guess I'd throw a question back to you. In Manchester, did officers cover more than one sector?
No.
Okay, well, if you listen to this radio, state police cover multiple sectors at times when they're down on people. You hear the supervisors say, you're now covering this additional patrol area in addition to your primary patrol area.
We would cover in cases of emergency, of course you go off your roof. We wouldn't have a problem with that. But Manchester is a far cry from Hooksett. Manchester has upwards to 18 routes at the
Right,
same
but
time.
I guess that's the point, though. If you only have 2 patrol officers out there
Yeah.
and supervisor managing them,
Yeah.
the supervisor initially, unless they're tied up with something, sends one to the east side, basically, and one to the west side. And then as the calls come in, they juggle the calls that come in. If they need backup, obviously people are moving around, and the calls are handled as they come in.
Let me ask you this, what's the downside of sending, having a west side car that reports to duty and goes to the west side and covers the west side, and another one that covers the east side?
There
What's
is
the
what we
downside?
pretty much do now.
So you have no problem with there being, then to say that we now are establishing a West Side car?
The problem I would have is that I don't believe, again, under 1052, that you have the authority to get down into that level of operation of the department.
Well, then perhaps we need to get that straightened out real soon about what the authority is and what the authority that we don't have, because this is going to be a push-pull issue. I can see that now because you're taking the stance that we only have certain authority, and that's to overlook the bills and why do we have to do what we're doing on a day-to-day, the month-to-month running of the police department? Why is it you pulled two cars off the road if we didn't have that authority? Why didn't you stand up and say, hey, 105 says, nope, I decide how many cars we have. I decide how many people we put on the
And
street.
I totally disagreed with that. You gave an order for it to be done.
Well, I guess I'd be given a rule and an order to have this done. We gave you an order about pulling the lieutenant out and putting him on the street, but that didn't seem to work out too well.
So the long and the short, do you want us to start looking into getting this ironed out about our authority and what, because I think we're gonna run into this if we don't,
Well, I mean, I can read English, I'll say it again, I can read it, and it says, in plain English, that we have the authority to make the rules for the government of the police department. It can't be any clearer. The town has already said that we fall under 412. I learned that with the stipend. So either we do or we don't. And if
Mr. Wright, do you wanna weigh in?
I think last meeting, 2 meetings ago, he gave a directive where he wanted overtime and what have you. Last month, he said I made an error.
I did not say I made an error.
Yeah, you said you gave them back their directive. Now you're going the other way. I wish you'd make up your mind.
Well, be correct. I did not say I made an error. I didn't say that. What I said was that I'm rescinding that. I think we should rescind it and let the chief decide about the overtime. And there was a reason for that.
Well, don't you think he should decide where the cars go?
That would be nice, but I think we need to decide certain things when certain things don't get done. That would be nice. In any event, why are we reviewing manifests? I don't understand. Who gives us the authority to sign off on the manifest? Who gives us the authority to do anything? Why do we have monthly meetings? What is it we're doing? If we don't have the authority to have rules governing the police department?
I understand
I'm trying-
what you're
I'm trying to
saying.
get a
I'm
little
not,
confused.
I understand what you're saying. I guess I think that there's a line that's been drawn in the sand here, and we need to find out exactly, he's saying the opposite of what you're claiming that you understand.
How about this? How about we put this into effect, and he can go and research it, and if he finds a different opinion, legal opinion, then he can come back to us and say, this is the legal opinion that I found that is different. And then we
I
can
don't think
address
it's
it
a
then.
matter of, him, I guess I'm more concerned about not only doing the right thing, but I just don't think that that's the right way to go about it. I have some concerns about the fact of that document that was signed and whether or not that is indeed appropriate or is inappropriate.
That document we signed gives him the authority, doesn't take it away from us. It
He's
allows
claiming
him
it
to-
does. He's claiming it does.
Are you saying that letter we signed takes away the authority? Your interpretation is it takes the authority away from the police commission?
That
Puts it
we
all
only
through-
have within certain
I don't think that's-
chapter
No,
one.
No, if anything, I think it complements what 105 is.
But you're saying that it only with regard to chapter one.
Yeah.
And that's what I understood you to say.
And that's why my suggestion again, that.
Why we're
that-
going round and round the
that-
same
that again,
argument.
I may be wrong, I can only tell you what understandings I've had from training over the years of what 105 2A has been interpreted to me.
And I can only tell the commission what my understanding is and the legal opinions that we've got about 412. So if the commission doesn't want to go forward with this, which I think it would be wise for the commission to go forward with it, let another opinion come up on the chief's side, and if we need to be corrected, we can always rescind this. If the opinion is that. But right now, there is no opinion, and as far as I'm concerned, we're allowed to make rules governing. I mean, how many times are we going to read 412? How many times is the town going to tell us we fall under 412? How many legal opinions are we going to get that say 412? What's just an exception to the rule with the rest of the state?
Well, I guess I would go back to the fact about the discussion we just had with regard to, the West Side car. The chief is, if the chief is saying that indeed he is on the west side, aren't you agreeable to calling it a West Side car and having it on the west side?
I think we assign the cars, the cars will cover as best we can, and I don't believe, the knowledge I have, and I may be wrong, that is your authority to do.
Well, why did you say that the other day when we were in front of the town council, and I said there was no designated west side car, and you came back and you disagreed, and
Because of what I
basically,
just said earlier, that assuming all things equal, we don't have prisoners tied up or whatever, when the cars leave here, the
not
supervisor's
what
supposed
you
to let
said
somebody on
there.
the west side.
that's not what you said there. That's not what you said there. And I guess I would prefer you to go forward with the fact of what you said that day, that there is a west side car, and
Well, reality, if there's only one car on the road, there's an east, west, north, south car, because there's the one car, they go where the calls are.
You don't stack calls?
We do stack calls.
Okay, so if
Depends
there
what
was
the call
a...
is, obviously.
Right, so if there was a barking dog complaint on the east side, and the car is up on the west side,
They shouldn't be sent to the barking dog.
so emergency calls, important calls. That goes in every department in the state. If somebody's tied up in their sector, and it's an important call, it happens in Manchester, it happens with state police, it happens with every department. If it's an important call, you send who's available to cover it. But that car still goes back to its own route.
That's correct.
And there's cars that calls get stacked. If that guy's busy, or that car is busy, it's not an emergency call, that call may have to get stacked because you have somebody on the east and somebody on the west.
That's correct.
I don't understand, well, then it should be up to you I shouldn't have to be coming forward with this sort of stuff to get you to have a west side car and an east side car. We only have 2 people. If you're saying that we have 3 all the time now, we don't have 3 out there all the time.
No, but I would ask you, how have you decided that we don't have a west side car? Have you talked to the supervisors that schedule the cars? And
I get that from you, because you say, when we talked about the west side car, it's the north car that covers the west side.
And the west, and if they're in the, they cover the 2, just like sometimes somebody will cover other areas.
That's not the designation of the car. What I'm saying is a car that leaves here should go to the west side of the river and cover it from north to south. A car that leaves here should come out of the east side of the river and cover north to south. And if we have a third, then you put that person to cover and make it work. But this business of saying to us, we have a northwest car, it's called northwest. They cover the north part of the east. So my question is, who's covering the south part of the east? I mean, this town, you know, is divided by the river. And it's not like we have more than 2 or 3 cars out at a time, where we can have a northeast, a northwest, a southeast, a southwest. That would be 4. We had 4, I'd say, excuse me, break it up into 4 sectors. If you had 5, break it up into 5 sectors. Well, the majority of the time, we have what we have. Well, that's what forces
I'm going to
this.
stop this discussion because we could go on ad nauseum with regard to this, so I'm going to stop it right here and now. We're not getting any place with this, and we need to get to a resolution. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to seek out the opinion with regard to LGC, and if it needs to come back, not only the opinion, but what our authority is over and above of what the chief perceives it to be. I think we can make those, but I'm not going to sit here where I have one commissioner telling me every 2 minutes how much time has gone by and whatnot. So I apologize, but I'm not going to go on forever like this.
All right, but I just have one follow-up with the chair. If that's the case, why did we give adopt this other one about the chief having to go to graduation?
Well, that one there, to me, is almost like a no-brainer. I mean, he really should be there.
I understand that, so you're having reservations about these others.
I'm having reservations about
the rules that.
the authority where it, 2 things. I'm having reservations about the document that we sign and what we essentially do have for authority. And secondly, with regard to some of the motions that you're making as far as giving not only direction, but telling the chief what to do.
Well,
And rather than going there and coming back and finding out that we could not do it and have to rescind those motions, I guess I'm opting to get more information and an opinion. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. So this other one that we gave him about attending graduation?
I think he should be doing that.
So in your opinion, it's okay, so then we can give him that rule? So you agree with that rule? That we have the authority
If
to
you're
do that?
asking me about whether or not that's a rule, yep.
So we have the authority to do that rule, but we don't have the authority to do other rules? I'm confused again. in any
Okay,
event-
well, life is confusing,
I know it is, I know. All right,
okay?
I got another one. We have to go through them.
Okay,
I mean,
let's
I'd
have
like to,
them,
you
let's
you
have
can
them.
stop me.
Well, what are they basically? Do they all involve the same kind of thing? Because if they do, we need to, like I just said, we need to get, the information and do the research to find out about these. If they're all basically the same thing,
Well, we talked about the administrative lieutenant position,
right?
okay? This one has to do with another position.
Yeah, I have a question. Don't you think we should proceed to get on with the union negotiations, which we may end up at impasse because of a breach of his fiduciary duties? I think we should move on.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Come on, okay?
serious. I made a
I mean,
motion.
come on.
We're not gonna get anything
Let's
done.
not let this meeting deteriorate.
This comes
To
from
this-
non-participants, you know? Please, I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Well, I'm not gonna second the motion.
Then let's get to business.
Okay. Please tell me what the other ones are.
There's one other, I don't have to read the first part about the written formal policy, but it'll be the Hooksett Police Department will only assign the rank of patrol officer as a school resource officer. The officer assigned as school resource officer shall have successfully completed a training class or course acceptable and recognized by New Hampshire Police Standards and Training Council for that assignment. That prohibits having supervisory staff doing the patrol, school resource officer.
Okay, and that's it? Okay, good.
Well,
I'll
the other one was for an e-cite car.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're gonna move right along.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see, the last item on there is,
Other business, items for next agenda and public.
we have, Francie, give you copies of your agenda.
Can I make one more? I'm gonna make one more motion under new business.
I have my old one. Yes,
I'm gonna make a motion that the police commission retain the services of the Municipal Resource Incorporated to do a top-to-bottom audit of the police department in Hooksett. And that's to be conducted by people outside the state of New Hampshire. So there'll be no conflict of interest in case anybody knows anybody from the department.
Commissioner, could you repeat that one more time? I was counting, please.
Make a motion that the police commission hire Municipal Resources Incorporated to do a audit of the Hooksett Police Department regards, from top to bottom, regarding the operations of the police department. And that they'd be from outside the state of New Hampshire, anybody that gets assigned to it. We need an audit of this department. And my understanding that MRI is the only one that can do that has the experience to do it.
is there a second? No? Well, I'll second the motion for, not only for discussion, but I think that was something that, when we met with the town council, that was something that we did explore, so I don't have any problem with,
With the understanding that the expenses are going to be within reason, we're going to have to decide. We'll get an idea from them how much it would cost. Obviously, if it's cost prohibitive, we don't have the money to do it, but if it's something that we think is reasonable, cost-wise, then it should definitely be done.
any discussion? Mr. Roy, about your opinion about it?
I think you should have a dollar figure or entertain a proposal before you even take a vote.
Well, we did have a general discussion with someone from MRI. I don't recall offhand what the cost associated with it was. Do we want to entertain the thought of a cost not to exceed? What are we talking about right now? What's the fund balance for the department?
If you look at the budget report that you discussed earlier, just to give you some highlights, the regular wages is underspent as of this December report by a little over $26,000. The overtime is overspent by $50,000 something. So the total wages now is overspent by $26,667. Your legal is already overspent by $23,640. So you just have to keep that in mind as far as moving forward, how much you want to spend on a study or any other items that we hadn't planned to spend money on this year.
We don't need a dollar figure at this point,
No.
because if we put a dollar figure out there, I guarantee that's what it's going to come in at.
I guess, question for you, would you like me to call again MRI and to get that figure, or to go forward and,
Well, I think we have to contact MRI to let them know what type of audit and what are the things that we're looking for to be done, and how it's, what the auditor's gonna cover, and then they can give a figure on that. But it needs to be an independent study, find out what the strengths and weaknesses of the police department are, and the operation.
I guess based on the, our prior history of the funds that we have remaining, aren't you comfortable enough to say that we will have the funds?
We can make that determination, and once we make that determination, then he'll,
Some line?
well, it's bottom line, he'll have to deal with it, have to deal with whatever money he's dealing with. He's gonna make cuts and make cuts. I don't know what else to say. I'm not gonna put on my credit card.
Okay. I guess at this point, we'll call for a motion, a vote on the motion. Please read the motion again, Francine, if you would.
The motion, the police commission hire Municipal Resource Inc. to do an audit of the Hooksett Police Department regarding the operations of the PD from top to bottom, from outside of the state of New Hampshire.
Do you have an amendment?
Yeah, let me amend that, I'll make it a lot simpler. I make a motion that we look into hire MRI to do an audit of the Hooksett Police Department.
That's it?
That's it, we can tell MRI what we want done, and we can tell them who we want done, it doesn't have to be in a motion.
So you withdrew your first motion.
I'm making this motion very simple.
So withdraw, state that you're,
I withdraw.
withdraw your original motion, and I'll withdraw the second that I made.
Okay.
Okay, so that we're clean there, and now you've made your second motion or your other motion.
All of the above.
Well, I just
I
want,
did. I rescinded the first motion, and I amended it to make it very
very
simple.
simple, hire,
We need to get an audit of the Hooksett Police Department, and MRI is the one, my understanding, to do that. So that's what
okay,
we need to have.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion?
Read the motion again, please.
Motion to hire an MRI to do an audit of the Hooksett Police Department.
I'm not in a position to hire anybody till they come in here and they tell me what their capabilities are and what their proposal is and what they're gonna do and what kind of dollars we're talking about. And who they've done this before, what their background is.
Well, that's what I was charged with, calling when I called earlier to find out. Like I say, I don't have the figure in front of me, what the cost is, was.
We'll simplify it. I'll rescind that motion. I'm gonna simplify it. I make a motion.
What are you, you're withdrawing that motion?
Yeah,
So
I have to.
So you want me to withdraw my second?
If you'd like, please do. The
Okay, I
motion-
did.
I make a motion that an audit of the Hooksett Police Department be conducted. Who is to do that will be determined at a later date.
Okay, I'll second the motion. Any discussion, Mr. Roy?
Yeah, what's the definition of an audit? What are the parameters?
What do you think an audit should consist of?
I
You're the
don't
bean
know.
counter. Tell me what it should be.
I would like somebody from MRI to come forward and speak to us before we go this
Well,
route.
that's what we'll have.
Okay, so.
We're talking about hiring someone.
What, I didn't say it, I withdrew the
Two prior motions.
motions about MRI. What I said was that we need to get an audit done for the Hooksett Police
It didn't
Department.
specify MRI, didn't do any of that.
Okay, well, let's have somebody come in and tell us what
That's
an
what that
audit
motion
is
says.
going to entail. No, he said, read the motion again.
Motion to audit.
It's a motion to audit.
Yeah, but he didn't say who to do it. You gotta get somebody to do it and somebody to come in and explain to you what they're gonna do.
I think it should be a motion to discuss an audit and what the parameters are and what their proposal is.
We don't need a motion to discuss having an audit done. All we need
No,
is,
all we need is to bring somebody
But this says it's,
in here and tell us what they want to do.
no, we tell them what they want, what we want done. You gotta, what I'm saying is we need an audit of the department, operational wise, personnel wise, from top to bottom. We need an audit of this police department.
all he's saying
Tell us
is
what
that,
we're doing right and
that
what we're doing
he
wrong.
feels that there needs to be an audit of the police department, not by whom or when or how much, it's just that an audit needs to be made. That's all it is. Okay? Okay.
I don't agree. I mean, the audit is very ambiguous. I don't.
I know, but when
should
we,
audit.
he comes in, or whoever comes in from wherever, whether, I don't know if it's MRI, who it is, they're gonna explain who is going to do it and what the cost is gonna be, and then we'll authorize whether or not. This is just saying that we need an audit, that we wanna have an audit. Okay, we'll call for a vote. Are you clear about that now?
No, I'm just saying, I would like to know what their engagement is
We don't
going
have
to
it,
be.
it doesn't
Well, that's
specify.
what I'd like to know before we proceed.
Let me explain this again. All this motion is saying that the Hooksett Police Commission is saying, we want to get an audit. We don't say who's going to do it, when it's going to be done, how much. That's something that needs to be determined, and what the parameters are going to be and whatnot. All it's saying is the motion on the,
No, police commission. You said police.
I thought I said police department, maybe I was a little lost there. Talking about the Hooksett Police Department having an audit done, I'm sorry, but I don't know how many ways I can say it. That's gonna satisfy everybody, but the intent of motion is, forgive me for smiling, because I'm very frustrated right now. The intent is to have an audit done of the Hooksett Police Department. Period. In audits, there's a lot of things that are covered. So we need to get with some companies and discuss that. What is it that these people do to audit the police department? They will inform us, I'm sure. Tell us what type of investigations they do to audit, whether it's operations. They look at the size of the town, how many employees are working here, what the AOMs say. They go from soup to nuts. That's what an audit is. They audit the entire department. That's what I'm talking about.
And if the cost is prohibitive, we still go forward?
Well, I guess we would have to make that decision down the line when we find out how much, if we get some bids in that say, well, that type of audit is going to run you approximately this much. Then we will have an idea.
it's not a committal to any particular company. It's not a committal to any specific amount. It's just saying that the Hooksett Police Commission believes that we should have an audit.
And
End of story.
that will give us the authority to go forward and seek out having an audit done. They do a lot of things. They'll tell you if you're top heavy, if you have too much command staff, if you don't have enough police officers on the street, if you don't have this, that, and the other thing, they'll review everything. And that will maybe put to rest some of the issues that we have concern over. So this is, I'm asking for the commission to go forward and seek having an audit done.
Are you okay with that now?
Call for the vote. I don't want to vote.
Okay, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay. Okay, moving right along, I think the only other thing is item C, Officer DeFina's request of whether or not we're gonna hear Officer DeFina. Go ahead.
Well,
We're not gonna listen to, we're just gonna entertain whether or not we're gonna,
Before anybody goes forward, it's my understanding that that request is to see the commission in private. Is that correct?
that's correct. That's correct.
In private, non-public.
I meant privately with you, excluding the chief and Francine. So, if it has to be in private, I can do it in public, that's fine.
Well, the problem, I'll tell you, the problem that I would have is if it's going to be in public, then anybody can attend. And I can't kick, I don't think the chair can kick anybody out of the meeting.
If it'll be in public, then everybody can attend, that's great. That's
Right,
fine.
and the
If
other
it's
thing is, let
non-public,
me be clear, if it has anything to do with the litigation,
Nothing to do with it.
we're not hearing it.
Nothing to do
We're
with
not
litigation.
entertaining that. Um,
Um,
I just have something to submit and a statement to read and a question, basically.
Well, if we do it in non-public, then that might be better, only because there's ongoing
Going litigation.
litigation. And it would be, in my opinion, that we should hear it in non-public.
And I just want you to be aware, if I find in your statement that it goes to that,
Is-
that's it.
Does any part of this fall under 91A that has to do with somebody's reputation? et
Yeah,
cetera,
and that's what I'm here for.
So,
Here,
I
pass
don't
that
know,
to-
I'm not the chair. So
Okay, we're gonna hear this in non-public, okay? So you'll have to
Yeah.
wait?
I think he's got a caveat
I
here.
have a couple of questions. What I came to present, since I've been sitting in the commission meeting, I have a couple of things I'd like to speak to you about, just regarding what you spoke about tonight. Very.
But you wanna do
generous.
public input, is that what you want?
As a
No,
citizen?
this is just not as a citizen, as a, I guess as a police officer.
You're not on the agenda for that, I would think you'd have to fall
Oh,
under the public.
you'd have to either
Okay,
come in
public
as the
input.
public
Can I
or,
do public input at this before I go into non-public?
Well,
I
where
just
does it
have
fall on the agenda?
some things I'd like to clarify based on the information given in this year. Okay, so do that. Okay. Yeah,
I agree.
I can wait until after and do it during public input.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
I would advise you to hold those, okay? And we'll need a motion. Well, we do have the items for the next agenda. Francine, you will put together,
What? I'm sorry.
I said to hold those.
He's confused as to where he's gonna
This,
be.
the public input or the non-public speaking to the commission?
Both the public input in that. Hold them for now.
If you're gonna speak, you need to speak as a private citizen, public, not as a police officer,
Okay, I can speak as a private citizen.
because you're not on duty right now, right?
No?
It's just a very fine line, and I want you to be aware of that.
I wouldn't,
I wouldn't advise it, but
is there a, chief, is there a An SOP are operating in the AOM about police officers representing the Brooksville Police Department and talking to the media or talking to the public. Is there anything that would get him in trouble for talking as a Brooksville police officer?
That would just come from this stuff, not the.
I wouldn't go there.
I think it depends on what it is, I mean, I
Yeah, I
can't say
wouldn't go
up
there.
front, I mean, you have to vet it out depending on what the.
I'll wait for the public citizen to.
I think, because you're not on the agenda, we can't, I wouldn't call you as, to hear you, what you have to say as a.
Normally, what we
official
do
duty.
in an approach like that would be for you to contact the commission or whatever to state what you want to come and speak about. Okay, that's how we would approach it. Okay?
We have no idea, I have no idea at this point what it is you're gonna talk about. So if we had some advance notice like we would from other people that we allow to come and talk to the commission, they tell us what it's all, ahead of time what it's all about.
I can wait for public input for the sectors.
And the other stuff you're looking to do in non-public?
Yeah, in that, I guess I would recommend him to hold it and to give it to the commission as an item that he would like to come and speak to us about.
I need to know what the agenda is.
Okay,
It's,
Francine, for the items for the next agenda, one thing that we spoke about at the beginning is with regard to those minutes, not only to get all those cleaned up for the approval, but also to get those minutes that are non-public, that no longer should be maintained in non-public, so the commission will have to go through those. And I think a couple of other items that you need to research, come back to the commission with regard to the issue about both the late fees and that. Could you speak with somebody from the town with regard to that and see if we can come to some resolution? And Chief, based on the motion that was taken up earlier with regard to possibly doing an audit, I would ask you that you come back for the next meeting, give us an idea where we stand and where our expenses, where you anticipate our expenses to go over the course of the remainder of the year, to give us an idea of how much money we will have remaining or where the budget will be. Okay, we certainly need that.
are we still under other business?
Oh, I went to item for the next agenda. You can, do you have an item for?
I do have to find the, I got it out of the way. This has to do, I know I sound like a broken record, but it has to do with the vehicle inventory, Chief.
Is that other business or is that item for the next agenda?
Other business.
Okay.
When I'm looking at the mileage, excuse me, my apologies. When I look at the mileage, we have 2008s that go from 14,000, 19,000, 22,000, 35, excuse me, 2008s, according to this, only have 14,000 and 19,000. We have 2007s that have 22,000, 35,000. And then we go into 06s, and we have 06s that have 33,000, 55,000. One has 101, and the other one has 77. The reason I bring that up is, you still have the practice of those vehicles sitting when the officers aren't working, and that's why there's such low mileage, or have you adopted the practice of having, you know, those 4 units, and that one comes in, the next cop gets into it and drives off, so those vehicles are running 24/7, because this is so lopsided, mileage-wise, and it was my understanding when I first started talking about it, or making inquiries about it is, excuse me, people are assigned certain vehicles, and when those people aren't working, those vehicles sit. And that would explain why these cars that are 3 years old and 4 years old have such little mileage on them. I'm wondering, are you going to adopt the practice of getting some of these lower mileage cars and putting them out 24/7, so when a car comes in, the next person jumps in it and takes off?
Yes, and I would say that the reason that some of the older vehicles have lower mileage, I believe one, and I don't remember which car, but one I think was the K-9 vehicle, so that had the cage in the back with the K-9, so that would not have been a transport vehicle, so the time that was assigned specifically to the K-9 must have.
Right.
I think the other one was the vehicle assigned to the SRO. But to answer your question, yes, we'll be moving to that.
What's
Is
your-
that the only one?
What's that?
Is that the only one that has the high mileage?
Well, we have, it looks like the highest mileage cars now are 2006 with 77,000, and 2006 with 100, over 100,000, 101. And then we have some 2006 with 33 and another one with 55. And I know it's been the past practice of those vehicles sitting when those people aren't working, and everybody was assigned a vehicle, and the school of thought, I think, where the explanation was that the car would last longer if only one driver was driving it. And that is true, if only one driver drives it, the car's gonna last longer, but I don't think now that we've reduced the number of vehicles out there, I think it would be prudent to have some of those vehicles, based on mileage, start having some sit.
Right now,
Start putting
right
some
now,
of
the
the-
two oldest ones obviously will be run, I believe those will be run 24/7.
The oldest ones, you said?
The oldest ones, the highest mileage ones.
I was thinking just the opposite, take the lowest mileage ones and start running them to get their mileage up. And
Well, if I can, I was thinking that if we're going to get rid of two more vehicles before the end of, or by the end of this current budget year, we would want to get rid of the vehicles that have the highest mileage on it, not run up other mileage, and then have 4 vehicles that have higher mileage at the end in June, and have just 2 that are up there.
But at the rate that these have been going, if you have a car that's 3 years old and only has 14,000 miles on it, another car that's 3 years old and only has 20, they're not putting any mileage per year on that. I mean, it's less than, what, 5,
What about those 4
7,000 a year?
vehicles that you were gonna take out of service? And when are you turning those over to, is it the town that you're turning those over
We
to?
took the 2 out that are sitting out here now. The town has a bid process that we have to work with them on.
And,
The other 2 cars.
and they're going to be accepting bids from other
The town has
communities?
Well, the town has a process that we follow where we get like a fair market value, and the town puts up paperwork, and companies or whatever can bid on it.
So they are not going to any departments or anybody
Well, that's up
else?
to the town. If the town needs the cars, they certainly can
Well,
take them on.
shouldn't we ascertain that first and
Right,
foremost?
well, we send them the packet of information here saying, here, this car is out of service with us. The town can then say, well, geez, we have a need, or they can say, we don't have a need, so we will start the process, the town's process for disposing of the vehicle.
Right.
So they get the information, and then they have the option of picking it up, and if, you know, if that's the town need.
Right, and if they sell it, then the money goes back into the
Town coffers.
general fund to lower the tax
Fund,
rates,
yeah.
right? It just, I mean,
What about this, chief? Supposing you do sell the vehicles, is there a possibility that if the vehicles were sold, if they did sell them to dealers or whatever, could they be used as, partially as a trade-in when we do purchase vehicles?
To my knowledge, we turn them over to the town, and the town gets rid of them. Whether they use them or we sell them through the bid process we just talked about.
I guess, like I said earlier, I haven't said it in a while, but I would hope that at some point that would be a conversation we could have with the town council with regard to what's the best approach. If you would, Jim, bring that back to the council, I'm not saying one way or the other, but just a question, what's the best approach for dealing with something like that? I know we've discussed it, but I don't think we ever came to any resolution or got any.
No, I think you have to check with finance and the town
Right.
administrator to find out what your different options are. If the
Right,
town has the
because
ability-
we, on a periodic basis, do purchase cars, and if you have a car that you can use as a trade-in, it lessens the cost. And I'm not saying buying cars, you know, I'm not going there, but I'm just,
You would have to check with finance to find out how that would work.
just a question that I think that the council could certainly discuss. Is that it?
Well,
Do you have anything else for the items for the next agenda?
No.
Or you gave all those?
Yeah, that might turn. Not to say something will come up between now
I
and
know,
then.
I'm sure. Mr. Roy, you have anything? No, okay. Okay. The next item is the public input. I would ask those people who have public input to please be brief. Anyone? Those, I'm warning you.
David Fino, I'm speaking as a public citizen, not as a police officer. For years, I've watched as the chief has spoken to different boards, the commission, council, budget committee, different town boards, and it's frustrating watching information be passed around and not being able to say anything, or not being able to come forward with the correct information. It always seems like there's some bit of transparency that isn't quite there, some confusion. It's almost like semantics every single time, and it's frustrating. Just sitting here, I came to present something to the commission on the agenda, and I could barely stay in my seat. It's frustrating. One of the things I like to speak to, I've heard it before. I was here actually at the meeting where they presented the Lieutenant McDaniel's job description. You know, he had typed it up, and he spent the majority of his time working on these policies. Before I was terminated, I was put into a training program. Officer Durkis and I went through this program. It was extremely difficult because the policies were so outdated. A lot of them we couldn't find. There were huge problems in trying to locate the information to even follow the FTO manual and to train a recruit. When I came back, as you know, I was put through another training program. Before I left, we had come up with, we made a list as we went. Here's all the things that we're finding wrong with the policies. Here's all the changes that need to be done. We submitted that. I'm back 13 months later, and when Pete and I went through the policy the second time, 3 pages of corrections to the policies. Still, nothing had been changed. 3 pages. Pete's in the other room right now filling out, it's called P105. It's a request for a policy change. He's getting paid to do this. So if Les's job is to update these policies and keep them updated. I showed you a policy during the meeting in 2000. So we paid money a year ago to an attorney to review this thing, and the policy, the last time it was updated is in 2000. I just want the truth to come out that there's some huge problems with our policies. They're very outdated. And it's not this daily thing of updating the policies. It just isn't happening. I just want you to know that.
Thank you.
Did you receive policy updates when you were reinstated and came back and had your FTO?
I did.
Did you get the new updates, inserts?
Oh, yes, and I've kept my book great. The other thing is, I've been back, 4 months now? I've never heard of a Northwest car being told that primary sector is on the west side. You know, I thought maybe, well, I've been out for a year, maybe that's an issue. I went straight in. Pete's the senior guy. He's been here 12 years. I conferred with him. He's never heard of such a thing. And he's the supervisor. I mean, if there's an OIC, he's an OIC quite a bit of the time. So I don't know where this come from. A Northwest sector car is supposed to primarily go to the west side and supposed to hit the road and head right over there. I've never heard it. And You know that the supervisors have been working as OACs. I've worked for almost everyone in the building that is in the supervisor role, and no one has passed that down, that when you're a Northwest car, you're supposed to be primarily on the west side. I heard it here tonight. I don't know where it's coming from. Pete has never heard that. He's been here 12 years without the year off in between. So the information is not coming across the way it should. I just want you to know, it's difficult to sit here because I've never heard that. And after confirming with Pete, it doesn't seem to exist.
Thank you. Anyone else?
David Pearl, 79 Main Street, I have 3 topics that are going to be very quick. It is embarrassing to be a citizen of Hooksett and to see Jay's sister come up here and criticize the situation, and the chief not have the respect to look up from his paperwork, as he's doing right now, and even look at the citizens that take time out of their time to come here and voice their concerns, and he doesn't even have the respect to look at us. That infuriates me. 2, when I hear the chief say he did it because he can, when you were talking about the 105, that's not a reason. It seems like he's in agreement, but yet because he can, he's going to exercise that right. From a taxpayer's point of view, that's not what we want to see. I'm not blaming the commission for that. But if he's in agreement, why should it matter who has the authority? That should be the policy if everyone's in agreement. 3, whether there's civil litigation or not. As a citizen, we saw this commission rule that there was due process was not followed when Jay DeFino was terminated. That was your decision. We have seen no we have seen nothing brought against the chief, no discipline, no nothing. Yet, when Jay wrote a Post-it note and stuck it on a door, we had to have a hearing, and we had to go through all that. That I would throw out to you as a minor incident compared to not following due process, firing someone for a year, only to be found wrong by the sitting commission. And that frustrates us as citizens. We want to see justice. If we don't see it from the chief of police, we don't have confidence in the police department. Thank you.
I just want to, I have to respond, and I'll be brief. When it comes to personnel matters, you won't see anything unless the person wants it public. Okay? Huh?
I was going to say, we can't share that information.
So, you know, that goes for any employee in the police department. You know, because the public is not, if something, I have to respond, and I'll be brief. When it comes to personnel matters, you won't see anything unless the person wants it public. Okay? Huh?
I was going to say, we can't share that information.
So, you know, that goes for any employee in the police department. You know, because the public is not, if something is done to an employee, it's not going to be publicized. We're not going to go out and tell the public. So just understand that when it comes to personnel issues, that has to be followed. We have to follow that in a strict fashion. So.
Thank you.
In his particular case, he requested things go public. So.
Yes?
Hi, J.R. Willett, 3 Summerfair Street. I heard that the current SRO doesn't have a police department provided cell phone. Do you know if that's true?
I guess that's a question I'd have to ask the chief. Does he have one?
No, I believe we took that one back, because we're on file with it.
Why did we give that one back? You didn't feel he needed it?
We were looking at areas to cut, and we felt that he has a radio system, and that works.
The reason why I asked that is for that particular reason. He says he has a radio, but if it was an emergency within the school department, within any of the schools, how do they contact him? when he's roaming around in the schools. There's no way of contacting the SRO in the event of an emergency. So that's an area I thought of a cut for a cell phone for an SRO. I just can't believe it. I heard this, I thought it was a rumor, so I was bringing it forward, to find out if this was actually true. Because we're talking about a cell phone, you've got to be kidding me. I also heard that the SRO now is using an unmarked police vehicle. I was wondering if that is true as well.
Yes.
I was wondering what the reason is behind that with all the cruisers that we actually have. We have some with high miles. You would think that that would probably be a vehicle that would probably be more suited for them. Don't we want police presence in our schools?
Chief?
That's a decision the staff made in looking at our fleet and the assignments of vehicles.
The staff made or you made?
Well, reviewed it with the staff and we came up with a decision of how the vehicles are going to be assigned. That's our prerogative.
Right. It is, and I agree, but we don't want a black and white that says Hooksett Police parked at a school. So any potential issues of somebody trying to come there might upset it. They might see, uh-oh, there's a cop there, as opposed, I don't,
If that's what you want, we'll do that.
well, I can't tell you what to do, right?
That'll make you happy, I'll do that.
Personally,
I hit the button. Go ahead.
Personally, I think you should have police presence. I mean, there should be a cruiser there. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, check with other departments what they do. You'll find out that's where they're headed. Many department changes that occur outside of this commission's involvement appear not to have community's interest at heart. I'd like to ask the commissioners to request future reports of the changes that are being made with the day-to-day operations of this department, like the cell phone, for instance, and the unmarked car, things like that. I think you need to monitor the operations and decisions that are being made here, unfortunately, on a daily basis. The other thing I was wondering, can you tell me if the cruiser laptops are connected?
Chief?
It's not 100% done yet.
Are any of them connected?
Well, as a budget committee member, you know, we took funds out of somewhere, put it in there for those laptop connections, because we thought it was well worth it. It's a safety issue for the officers, very concerned about it. I would like to know why it's not being done.
Yeah, I've got Dave will give you a status update. He's the one that's handling that project if you'd like.
Why don't you find out and get back to us? Go ahead.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Paul Luzon, 21 Post Road. Just had a few comments. I guess, once again, and I've said this in the paper, and I've said this before this commission before, that this, I never really seen real decisions made by the chief in regards to, or any suggestion of strategies. One thing about the AOM in my review of it, there's a section in there about 5-year plan and strategy and stuff of that nature. It's supposed to be updated every year. I'd like to know when I can get access to that document, if possible, where it sets goals and objectives. But one of the things I'm super concerned about is a lot of the, what I've talked about, what I believe is the chief's appearance of equivocation on everything. No real decision. I was chuckling. 0% hookup, 0%, not less than 100%. And that's the kind of thing that really aggravates me as a manager myself. It just gets a little funny. And one of the things is that since these real decisions or solutions simply are not offered up, and I just don't see it. And I think this method is kind of dilutes authority and kind of diffuses responsibility. This whole thing by management by proxy is very strange to me. And I think it's a detriment to this department. The fact that when you're talking about sectors, that he was saying, 1980s, I start all of a sudden thinking that the emphasis here is 90% on administrative and policy issues and 10% on law enforcement. From the management side, I'm not talking about the guys that actually do the patrols, but it seems like an awful lot is done in regards to admin, but you really don't hear anything about strategies, even like you said about the SRO having a black and white president. The next thing in regards to civilian oversight, the feedback loop in regards to having you guys review those policy changes is not the fact for you guys to intercede. I believe the chief is correct that he does have that the authority in which to put forward a policy suggestion based on his experience in the department, how it's run. But I do believe that you have the authority to say yea or nay or make changes to challenge him, and that's the feedback loop for civilian oversight. You're supposed to see that and say, why did you make this change? What was it in comparison to the last change? So that you have the ability to have that information. So I believe it's very important for civilian oversight. As far as the changing things, I know as a civilian I could do a petition warrant, and I could just say that and get people to sign and say, I believe that this command staff should only have one captain, one lieutenant, and one chief, and then have it for a vote. So if I can influence the structure, I better believe that you guys can influence the structure and change the structure as well. So, anyways, that's the only last thing I think is on the cars and stuff like that. Once again, I've said this once before. I think the problem that we've had with this department is it's never evolved, and maybe from the discussion tonight, it hasn't evolved since 1980. Thank you.
Sure, we're going to take a 5-minute break, just for some people to, we've been sitting here. Anybody else here having public input? Yes.
Good evening, Michael Sorrell. I live at 54 Cross Road in Hooksett.
Yes.
There's a letter in the Hooksett Banner about a week and a half ago that caught my attention and prompted me to come and visit with you this evening. The letter took me back to May of 2009. It was reported in April of 2009 that there were going to be grievance.
A couple comments, and other things that you talked about, because I usually do collect things. It is dangerous to speak without knowledge.
You stole that from me.
There's a quote by you, yes. Albert Hubbard also stated that if you are in disagreement with someone, and that was his quote by the same author, if you are in disagreement with someone, do not despair. You can always call them vile names. That was a quote by the same author. Jay DeFina, like any other citizen who attends these meetings before this commission, has a right to speak his mind, whether he's an officer or not. I don't speak here as a budget committee member. I shouldn't be identified as a budget committee member. He did speak prior to his comments that he was not speaking here as a public official, as a police officer. He has a right, an inherent right to do so based on the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And no one should violate or rescind those rights to do so. I want to state categorically also, discussing other issues here that you discussed tonight, that the SRO card tonight, which has apparently been abandoned in the parking lot, actually says on the side of the card, school resource officer, and yet it sits in the parking lot and there's an unmanned vehicle there instead. But now we have a car here that says SRO on it, not being used. My understanding, based on mandates, manifests, as I do in my job, that as federal expense law states that all attendees of meetings, restaurants, and entertainment must have their names on the receipts to identify what the purpose of that entertainment was. So if they are not doing that, they should be. It's my understanding it's a federal law for you to document those expenses for any potential audit coming from federal departments. I want to know if the laptops are in the budget for this coming year. I will be asking that on February 5th. And reminding this commission that last year we went to great lengths to add $7,200 for the broadband internet for those laptops. 7 months have gone by in this current fiscal year with that money added in. I don't know how it's being used, but you wasted 7 months based on that authorization to do so. I want to know if the new secretary will be able to attend non-public meetings to listen and take minutes of those meetings. And as the secretary candidate, been cleared for sensitive information and confidentiality. I would suggest to this commission to actually post the graduations of these candidates, which I am in full favor of. I hope you should do that. Post it on the HPD website. There's not much information on it right now. When you go on there, so a little more valuable information for the citizens would be helpful. The commission, to their credit, and even in the face of potential abolition for the May elections, because of a Warren article by the town council, is trying their best to follow Chapter 412 here. And yet the chief seems to be resisting those attempts by this commission. You are his boss. And yet he is resisting through what we see as semantics and subterfuge and inertia of this department. Previous commissions have allowed this resistance to supersede the commission's situational awareness and overcome the new commission's attempts to do their legitimate jobs. I urge you to continue what you're doing now with this scrutiny. It's my understanding, based on past testimonies, based on this West Side car issue, I specifically remember in my 3 years on this budget committee and sitting in town council meetings that this command staff and the past commissioners categorically stated that there was no dedicated West Side car. And that's why they were trying to put money into the budget. They categorically said there is no dedicated West Side car. I have that in my committee notes. The superiors seem to be acceding to the subordinate employee and only obeying the rules that the employee tells you that are legitimate. I urge you not to no longer do so. Regarding the audit, whoever does it, I offer one other agency, the PERF agency, who also does these kind of activities, these audits of departments, and they do a fantastic job. I can even offer you some names if you want to do so. My also suggestion is to find money for that. Remove the $26,000 in the raises that the command staff got on last January, and also for the half a year of the budget anyway, and any money saved by the minute takers that you just saved tonight. Thank you very much for your time.
Anyone else?
Can I go again?
Don't tell me.
Just to the minutes?
I wish you wouldn't. I mean, we are extending the courtesy, but, you know.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to note that's the second time that you guys have done that to me, but that's fine. No, it's okay.
Restricting them from coming up a second time.
That's okay.
Yes, he
He
did.
spoke in a second?
Yeah.
Not that I didn't know.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, we're going to entertain a motion to go into non-public under that. A and C. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A, :3, section 2A and C.